says Senzo Mchunu is no longer fit to be police minister. This follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to the questions of Parliament's ad hoc committee. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's soccer action from last night. Golden Arrows and Stellenbosch FC share the spoils in a frustrating premiership draw. And Live Golf tees off in South Africa today, marking a historic first on African soil. We'll have the details at around 6:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Along Joburg's N3, coming out of Germiston and Alberton through Elan's past Cement Factory and up into the work zone around Heldenace Interchange. Not much being done in terms of works, but certainly a big impact on traffic. A little bit slow already into the Crown. That's on the Mike 1 running north this morning. Durban side, the N2, Spaghetti Junction, Mugeta Road, nothing broken down there. At this stage, it's not a bad run, either north or southbound. Cliffdale, Key Ridge, that looks okay, whether you're Durban bound or Pietermaritzburg bound. Might be a little bit of slow truck traffic going up to Pietermaritzburg, but motorists seem to be getting through okay. And Cape Town, another morning of no traffic lights. M7, R300, if you're coming out of Mitchell's Plain, queuing traffic on both of those routes as you head out towards Samora Machel and the Philippi side. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It is coming up to 8 minutes after 6. Today is Thursday, the 19th of March, 2026. You're listening to SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. While you slept, we scanned and scoured your locality, province, country, continent, and the world. Carefully curated those news and current affairs developments that we believe will move the needle in your world today, and we've packaged them into this morning brief, which we now proudly present to you. Good morning, I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Among some of what we will tell you over the next 3 hours, for the longest time, our economy was literally plugged out from its main energy source, starved of essential, reliable power supply, with well-documented disastrous consequences that we saw during the dark days of the power blackouts, the rolling power blackouts known as load shedding. During that time, we were told that the path to sustainability goes via a systemic overhaul of the energy system, including breaking Eskom apart into smaller, manageable specialist units, the so-called unbundling. Much water has flowed under that bridge of unbundling, and some of the new units are now taking shape. But even as reliability is improving, affordability of electricity appears to be the new conversation now. So what we will do, we have a special guest at 7:10. We will turn to the country's future, the future of the energy and electricity system, and the questions of whether Eskom can reinvent itself fast enough and efficiently enough to meet the country's needs. The unbundling process, as I said, is now moving from policy into practice, but it's facing resistance, some level of resistance from among the labor movement and scrutiny from policymakers. So we'll unpack what the creation of separate generation, transmission and distribution entities really means in practice. And we'll explore the promise and uncertainty around Eskom's new green energy ambitions. So we'll speak to Mteto Nyati, the chairperson of Eskom, who will be my special guest, coming into studio just after 7, at about 7:10 or thereabouts, in a wide-ranging conversation around Eskom and the work that is being done. And indeed, if you have any questions that you'd like us to pose to the chairperson of the Eskom board, Mteto Nyati, please feel free to share those on 086 000 2032 or on the WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. So that's coming up at the top of the second hour. In the third hour, we'll start that hour with a conversation about this major breakthrough that we've been covering at length here on the show, the breakthrough in HIV prevention, but it's now meeting up against familiar global fights over access and affordability. The new injectable drug, lenacapavir, is what I'm talking about. which we're told could dramatically reduce new infections, but only if countries like ours can secure fair licensing terms. We'll look at why Doctors Without Borders, for example, is urging government to go further, even considering compulsory licensing. With millions of lives at stake, the balance between innovation and access becomes critical. It's that familiar story. A new drug is invented that solves a major problem in the health space, and there's all that buzz and excitement about how game-changing it is going to be. But then reality sets in that talks about affordability, and whether or not countries like South Africa that are purchasers of this new drug and new invention will be able to afford it and will be able to produce generics, for example, and participate in that value chain. It becomes an all too familiar conversation. Or will we continue to be just buyers and consumers without ever localizing some of the supply chains and having access to the licensing and the patent rights to be able to produce affordable generics? So that conversation is coming to the fore very early on around lenacapavir, the same way that it did with other drugs in the HIV space. You'll know about all the court cases and the battles that were fought to get us to the point where ARVs are affordable for the South African health system. So at 8:10, we'll speak to Alison Best, HIV HCV Access Communications Advisor at Doctors Without Borders Southern Africa, foregrounding that conversation about affordability, patents, as well as the ability to produce generic drugs, generic versions of lenacapavir, where that conversation is at the moment. Then lastly, let me flag this story. Coming up at 8:45, we will examine the vandalism of Robert Sobukwe's gravesite and what it says about how the country remembers its past. The Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, has described the act as a direct attack on African dignity and political legacy. So you'll know that this incident happened a couple of days ago, and there's a belief among the family, the Sobukwe family, that it might be linked to the ongoing controversies and debates around the renaming of the town Graaff-Reinet to Robert Sobukwe Town. It came shortly after there was a march over the past weekend, where members of that community, some members of that community, were marching in support of the name change from Graaff-Reinet to Robert Sobukwe Town. So we'll explore the timing of the incident coming amid, as I say, the renewed efforts to foreground Robert Sobukwe's contribution to the liberation struggle. We'll ask whether enough is being done to protect historical sites and symbols. And what does this moment reveal about memory, identity, and political tension in this country? Apa Powe is Secretary General of the PAC and will speak to me at about 8:45 this morning. Morning Brief team, to your stations please for the takeoff, and Musa with your news updates at the top and at the bottom of every hour. Zaikan has got all your sporting action on and off the field covered throughout the 3 hours. Rob Byrne is watching the highways and the byways and will make sure that you are the first to know should there be any snarl-ups on your route this morning. Melissa Puta completing your picture with the morning brief in brief, and that's coming up in the next few minutes. Dowling Lechela, always right on the money with your business, economics, and market updates across the 3 hours. And of course, Sipho Mantula, Mo Africa, will lift and highlight some of the key developments on the rest of the African continent in his Africa update, coming up at about 20:07 this morning. Your calls 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The first hour of the morning brief starts now.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable. You receive up to 745,000 Rand worth of legal services per year. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection orders, gender-based violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 Rand, and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. Old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love, in all its forms, matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3 of the Love.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, let's get started. Melissa Puta is in studio with the morning brief in brief. Good morning, Melissa. Let's start with news coming out of the Pretoria, the High Court division in Pretoria, in this case around the appointment of the NDPP and the challenge that has been mounted by this law firm. What's the progress on that?
So, good morning, Thulasizwe. The Pretoria High Court has reserved judgment in the legal challenge of Bikulu and Partners Incorporated, challenging the appointment of Andy Mutibi as the head of the National Prosecuting Authority. The firm argues that the process was flawed because Mutibi was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa without being interviewed by the independent advisory panel that had assessed 6 other candidates and found none to be suitable. They claim this created procedural unfairness and that concerns about the inclusion of Hermone Cronje in the shortlist also compromised the process. The president's legal team maintains that the constitution gives the head of state sole authority to appoint the NDPP.
And I suppose the expression is musical chairs, or the only constant is change at MK Party. But in fairness, if someone is suspended, it can end one of two ways. Either they are then dismissed or they are reinstated.
Yes, indeed. So the Umkhonto Sizwe Party has reinstated John Hlophe as its parliamentary leader and first deputy president after lifting his suspension. Hlophe had been suspended in November of 2025 after he removed Colleen Makhubele as the party's chief whip without consulting the party's president Jacob Zuma, who later reversed the decision. Following discussions between Zuma and Hlophe and a review of the allegations, the party confirmed that Hlophe would immediately resume his leadership roles, replacing acting parliamentary leader Des van Rooyen.
All right, lastly, here's a story, here's an entity we haven't covered in a while, Ingonyama Trust and its board and its issues. There's intervention by the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development on that front.
Yes, so yesterday, Land Reform and Rural Development Minister Mzwanele Nyonso dissolved the Ingonyama Trust Board after several resignations left the board without the required quorum to operate effectively. The board, chaired by Mrs. Zulukazwi Litini, was reduced to 4 members, making governance unsustainable. Nyonso said an administrator will temporarily manage the trust under the Public Finance Management Act while a process begins to reconstitute the board. KZN Premier Thamsanqa Ntuli confirmed that he and the King were consulted before the decision was made. So that's the development with that, and this is a story we have been following quite closely as well.
All right, thank you for that, Melissa Puta, with the morning brief in brief this morning.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, on the weather front, here's what you can expect. There's one impact-based warning that has come through from the South African Weather Service. It is a yellow level 1 warning, and it is in place over the southeastern parts of the Northern Cape. That yellow level 1 warning is for damaging winds, leading to localized problems for high-sided vehicles on prone routes and damage to settlements and temporary structures. So that is the situation you can expect in that part of the country, southeastern parts of the Northern Cape. The rest of your weather will be looking like this. Pretoria, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 28. Johannesburg will have morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 14 to 25. Vereeniging will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 14 to 26. Mbombela, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 19 to 27. Polokwane, cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 18 to 27. Mahikeng will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 16 to 29. Vryburg will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 15 to 30. Bloemfontein, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 to 28. Kimberley, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 16 to 31. Same conditions, in fact, not the same conditions. Uppington will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with scattered afternoon thunder showers, 21 to 34. Cape Town will be cloudy with a chance of light rain in the evening, 16 to 23. George, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers from late afternoon, 17 to 29. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers in the evening, 17 to 27. Gugompo City, formerly East London, will be fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 18 to 27. Durban, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 23 and a maximum of 29. Richards Bay, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 23 to 30. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 16 to 29. I'm just wondering, when will I stop saying formerly East London when I say Gugompo City? When will enough be enough? When will it be that when I say Gugompo City, no one looks up and says, huh? And you all know what I'm talking about. I think I'm nearing that part, just for my own well-being. Very soon I'll just say Gugompo City and move on. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're on your own.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Berea, the home of the four bespectacled Tisson brothers, all of whom work or have worked on the English service, particularly Audio Mix and Radio Today. Watch how the night proceeds towards dawn.
And
I need a lot of consoling when I started the early program. People couldn't believe that John O'Donnell and B. Reid were chosen for the early morning program, because if ever two announcers used to want to swap a morning shift for an afternoon shift, John and I would do it.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
23 minutes after 6. Just how far the US-Israel-Iran conflict can stretch and how quickly it can end or escalate even further is no longer an abstract question in the Middle East. Israel now claims it has killed Iran's intelligence minister Ismail Khatib in a targeted strike barely a day after eliminating one of Tehran's most senior strategic minds, Ali Larijani, in what appears to be a systematic decapitation of Iran's leadership. At the same time, the United States has intensified its role, reportedly deploying bunker-busting munitions against Iranian missile infrastructure and striking energy assets tied to the South Pars gas field, a move that shifts the conflict squarely into the economic heart of the region. What began as a shadow war in many respects is now unfolding across borders, with missile exchanges, striking and strikes in Lebanon and mounting threats to Gulf energy facilities. And of course, with that Strait of Hormuz, an artery of global oil supply, now firmly in the crosshairs, the geopolitical stakes have become unmistakably global. Let's speak to Thembisa Fagote, Director of Africa-Asia Dialogues, also a global governance analyst. Good morning to you, Thembisa, and thank you for your time as always. There are many moving parts to this story, the different players and what they are doing on the field of battle. Let's start with the quote-unquote decapitation strategy that appears to be at play on the part of Israel. How's that shaping Iranian society? What do we know about how it's shaping the leadership at the top echelons and the resolve in Tehran?
Well, certainly it's going to impact or is impacting the leadership in Tehran. But notwithstanding, the leadership or government of Tehran is very complicated. And the decapitation of the leadership that has been announced by Israel has not impacted on the governance of the country. Systems still seem to be still functioning in that part of the world. But I think what we're all missing is what's happening within Israel, because Israel has decided, of course, to ban the media and journalists from covering this war. They've also implemented a new system of punishing and jailing those that publish pictures of destruction on the social media. So we are not seeing exactly what's happening in Israel. And the reports, of course, that we're getting is that Israel is also being devastated by this war. There are bombs on a daily basis. The Israelis are living under the bunkers. Destruction is huge at the moment. And certain senior political leadership of Israel have also been killed, but we're not getting those reports coming our way. So the war is devastating to both sides. Israel is being devastated, and at the same time, Iran is also being devastated, and there doesn't seem to be any off-ramp at the moment.
Yeah, a key feature that I noticed, Tembisa, that I don't know, I don't want to say surprised me, but was quite interesting to observe given the developments of the last 12 to 15 months, right, where Iran has been under various strikes from Israel and several leaders have been killed, is this whole role of so-called proxies in other countries. So I've seen a bit being reported from Iraq, and you then seeing also Hezbollah also being reactivated in a way to the extent that it had been deactivated to a certain extent following all of those strikes that I mentioned. Was that surprising to you? That, you know, we were given the impression that the so-called proxies of Iran have been weakened significantly, such that at the start of the current bout of fighting, they were not expected to feature in a prominent way, but it seems that is happening now.
Indeed, this all been propaganda. Of course, as you correctly put it, Hezbollah, we were told, was disseminated, obliterated, and Hezbollah is now putting pressure on the northern part of Israel, pushing back and leading to evacuations of the residents in northern Israel. So Hezbollah is up strong and hitting Israel in the north. Hamas also, we're told, was obliterated in Gaza, but not long ago we had Donald Trump praising Hamas for its role in assisting Israel to discover the dead bodies of the captives in Gaza. And Hamas, we all know at the moment, is running the show once again in Gaza. So we don't know really what's going on, but these so-called proxies are working. The Houthis in Yemen, who are yet to join this war in full force, they've started doing some disruptions on the Red Sea, are also likely to disturb the maritime traffic on the Red Sea. So the status quo remains in terms of the threats or the so-called threats in inverted commas to Israel, namely Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, and they continue fighting back, notwithstanding, of course, the attacks which were unprovoked by both Israel and the United States on the 28th of February, and the previous attacks on Iran in June last year, which we were told again that the nuclear facilities of Iran were obliterated. But alas, the United States has come back again to say the job was not well done, notwithstanding that Donald Trump said something opposite.
Lastly, in fact, speak to that, the role of the United States and how they're gaming this out and playing this out on the field of battle. And some of what we've heard in the last while, the US president initially asking other countries, including NATO countries, to join in and send warships to the Strait of Hormuz to help with it, but not being met with enthusiasm by those allied countries, and then reacting and lashing out and saying, actually, we don't need them. We knew that we support them, but we always doubted they would come to our aid. All of this happening while other events are playing themselves out, including the USS Gerald Ford, now headed back to port following a fire that broke out. Let me put it this way, is this playing out according to Donald Trump's plans, or is it not?
It's not playing out according to Donald Trump's plan. Number one, this is a very unpopular war inside the United States. We have seen
some of the right-wing influencers or social media influencers lashing out at Donald Trump for joining this war and helping a foreign country to further its objectives. This is an Israeli, not even an Israeli war, it's a Benjamin Netanyahu's war who has been obsessed over the past 40 years of attacking Iran and eventually and finally got someone to support him in that ambition. But it's backlashing, of course, to both Benjamin Netanyahu, whose whereabouts are still to be confirmed, except for the videos that we're getting at the moment. So it's backlashing on both Israel and is also backlashing on the United States. And Donald Trump miscalculated this. He didn't expect that Iran was going to react in the manner that it reacted, particularly, he said so, by the way, particularly when Iran started retaliating and attacking the American installations and assets in the Gulf region, targeting United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and other countries. And this has caught them by surprise. We now know that Iran has started this morning attacking once again the oil and the gas refineries in the Gulf countries.
All right. Tembisa Fagude, Director at Africa-Asia Dialogues, also a global governance analyst. Let's go to N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, 3 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Police say this follows a high-speed chase after a hijacking, attempted murder and kidnapping incident in Crystal Park in the early hours of this morning. They say the victim was not hurt. Member of Gauteng's organised crime unit, Fani Nkosi, will return to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. Yesterday, the commission heard Nkosi had forwarded a list of bidders for a Tshwane Municipal Police Department tender to a man only referred to as Mr. Mampane. And the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, says Senzo Mchunu is no longer fit to be police minister. This follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to the questions of Parliament's ad hoc committee. Ramaphosa says Mchunu did not consult him about his decision to disband the political killings task team. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Delays again coming through Pretoria, the N4, off the Bekwela Highway onto the M1 South. Got those roadworks there. So if you come through Doornpoort Plaza on the N4, you want to turn down to Montana or Pretoria. Again, a convoy of sluggishness through the construction zone there. Marlborough Drive, a truck has just lost a load of cement powder out through Marlborough Gardens towards the N3 highway. So there is a bit of a backlog going there. Picks up on Twitter at Traffic SA. You can have a look at what you'll be driving through this morning on your way out towards Limbro Parkside. Crash on the Mike 1 around Woodmead Drive coming off Buccleuch on your way to Sandton. That's quite slow. The N3 is heavy already. We've been warning about this. The roadworks that are there, or the construction activities, if you like, around Heldenace, already pushing big queues back in towards the Ilans interchange area. Coming out of Durban on your way to Pietermaritzburg, bit sluggish. Key Ridge through to Cliffdale area this morning. And Cape Town, no traffic lights again. M7, R300 junction. Heavy pressure on both of those routes. You come out of Mitchell's Plain towards the Samora, Michelle and Philippi side. Also today, just keep this in mind, anyone with plans to travel through Mpumalanga between Piet Retief and Ermelo, in the work zone there on the N2, just around, between Leiden and Camden, just near the Camden exit, there'll be a 2-hour stoppage for blasting today, 12 p.m. until 2 p.m. Try and get through this morning or later this afternoon. If you go around lunchtime, you could well be just stuck there for anything up to 2 hours. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, Khan, as someone would say in the studio here. Zai, good morning to you. Tell me about Golden Arrows and Stellenbosch.
Yeah, Thulas, we've got some action from last night in the Betway Premiership. Plenty of effort. They just missed, somebody getting the finishing touch and beating, but it was a frustrating draw, 1-1 in this clash that took place in Durban. Golden Arrows and Stellenbosch FC there. The match lacking real cutting edge long spells, both sides struggling to convert chances. In the meantime, the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, has addressed the controversial decision to strip Senegal of their AFCON title and award it to Morocco. Motsepe has emphasized that CAF's judicial structures operate independently, distancing himself from the ruling while acknowledging the strong reaction across the continent. He says the process followed reflects the organization's commitment to governance and due process.
The independence is reflected by the decisions that were taken by the two bodies. The CAF disciplinary board took one decision. The CAF appeals board took a totally different position. And I'm told that that Senegal is going to appeal, which is very important. Every one of the 54 nations in Africa have a right to pursue their appeals and their advance interests, not only at the highest level in Africa, in CAF, but also the highest body, which is the CAS. And we will adhere and respect the decision that's taken at the highest level.
In the meantime, the FIFA World Cup 2026 will take center stage from the 11th of June to the 19th of July, with all matches broadcast live on SABC platforms. Let's go to UEFA Champions League last 16. Barcelona delivering a statement performance, thrashing Newcastle 7-2 to seal an emphatic aggregate win. Bayern Munich were equally dominant, beating Atalanta 4-1 to progress comfortably, while Liverpool cruised past Galatasaray 4-0 at Anfield. And in the closest tie of the night, Tottenham Hotspur won 3-2 against Atletico Madrid, but it wasn't enough. The Spanish side advanced 7-5 on aggregate. Live Golf makes history in South Africa today, with the tournament teeing off at Steyn City in Johannesburg, the first time the Global Series is played on African soil. A star-studded field, including local favourites Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Schwartzel, Brandon Grace and Dean Burmester, alongside international names like John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau. And the event carries a massive purse of $30 million and is expected to generate close to 1 billion rand for the local economy, with thousands of fans already securing tickets. And finally, women's golf. Sweden's Louisa Carbom produced a sensational 10 under par 62 to lead the Platinum Ladies Open before play was suspended due to lightning. She holds a 4-shot advantage after what she described as the best round of her career. That's your Sport on the Morning Brief. Swing back at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Darling, good morning, and thank you for coming to studio.
Morning,
what do we owe
Thulas.
this pleasure? You know, like a surprise.
I was telling Melissa that I thought, you guys, you know what? I'm sure you miss me.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me come in, let me say hi, let me make sure things are still in order, you know?
She's doing constituency work. she's checking on the constituency. The constituency appreciates it.
Only a pleasure.
Let's start in the United States. Tell me about the Fed standing pat on rates. This has to do with what's going on in the Gulf region, yeah?
Exactly. And what we also saw as U.S. policymakers also pushing back their rate cut expectations. Initially, when we walked into 2026, there were expectations of 3 rate cuts when looking at the U.S. Fed dot plot. But what we are seeing now is 1 rate cut for 2026 and another in 2027. U.S. policymakers, of course, opting for caution as they navigate persistent inflation, mixed labor market signals, and rising geopolitical tensions. Now, the Fed voted 11-1 to hold the benchmark rate at 3.5% to 3.75%, in line with expectations, of course. While the decision reflects ongoing uncertainty, policymakers still note that some easing, as I mentioned, lies ahead, with projections pointing to some rate cuts. In its updated outlook, the Fed raised its inflation forecast and expects price pressures to remain elevated in the near term,
partly due to higher oil prices linked to the war in the Middle East. Now, growth expectations were also revised slightly higher, suggesting the economy remains resilient despite all the headwinds. Now, in terms of the war, Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged that the economic impact of the conflict remains unclear, particularly as rising energy costs push up inflation expectations. But he noted that it's too soon to make any calls, and so policymakers will continue to exercise caution.
And that caution prevails even in Japan as well. Tell me about what the Bank of Japan has done.
Yeah, a really big week for central banks. Thulas, the Bank of Japan this morning joining the Fed and keeping policy unchanged. The BOJ held its benchmark rate at 0.75%, with most policymakers backing the decision, though one member called for a hike, highlighting growing concern over those external risks. Now, the pause reflects a bit of a delicate balance. Inflation is expected to ease temporarily below the 2% target, but risks are building, particularly from rising energy costs. Now, the central bank also flagged the Middle East conflict as a key uncertainty, warning that higher oil prices could push inflation higher, especially given Japan's reliance on imported energy. With the BOJ and Fed decisions now out, investor attention shifts to the Bank of England and the European Central Bank, with decisions out later today.
Yeah, and of course, we are watching
next week. Next week.
Great stuff. Darling, let's recap how the markets performed yesterday and how we are starting the day today.
Remember when I said yesterday that the gains we are seeing, right? Investors are concerned whether those gains will be sustainable. Yeah. The tide has turned and we are back in negative territory. This after a report said inflation was primed to worsen even before the war with Iran, which caused oil prices to spike. That and comments from the Fed led to a slump on Wall Street overnight, with the Dow Jones leading the losses down 1.6%. Markets back home also feeling the pain, and this despite a better than expected inflation print, with investors more concerned of what's to come as they assess the impact of elevated oil price on the economy. The oil share tumbling 3%, fueled by a 5% loss in the Resources 10 complex. The rand also feeling the pressure, very close to the 17 mark to the dollar at 16.96, 22.52 to the pound, and 19.56 to the euro. That risk-off mood, of course, being fueled by the war in the Gulf region, with the latest attacks on oil infrastructure pushing crude higher, up 3.8% to $106 a barrel. That also weighing on Asian equities this morning, with stocks in that region trading in negative territory.
When you walked in there was a laptop bag that was there. What did you do with it?
I gave it to Zalma.
You must handle
carefully
that,
so.
You must handle that bag.
Carefully so.
I'll tell you the story a bit later on. It's a very important bag, that one. Darling Lechela in studio for us this morning. Thank you. We'll talk to you once again just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn to Advocate Sipho Mandula. Raz, let's start in news to do with the United Kingdom and Nigeria. The King Charles, welcoming President Bola Tinubu.
Indeed, Thulas, but on a lighter note, I hope Ntaoleng is not bringing the woolies back there. And secondly, Thulas, the issue of Sobukwe, Thulas, I will touch on it tomorrow, because we indeed need to look at the issue that we have raised earlier of memory, identity, and the politics of name changing and confrontation. We will look into it as the Sierra Rights Commission, Thulas. I can assure you on sacred sides. Back to London, the Jagaban, Bola Tinubu, Thulas, visiting there after so many years. Actually, he's the leader who visited twice there, 2024. But the last visit was in 1989, that took place between the two countries. Now, today it's expected that he will meet with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. And the First Lady, Thulas, is a preacher. He will be preaching in Lambeth Palace at the seat of the Archbishop of Canterbury. But why this visit, Thulas, is to look at the bilateral. Nearly 40 years, like I said, the state visit never happened between the two countries. They're looking at 8 trade, defense, and you have what we call the diaspora, those who are staying there, more than 270,000 people from Nigeria in London. But others are critiquing this visit, saying you're visiting, but there's been an attack in the northern city of Maiduguri, where there was suicide bombers killing 23 people. So this visit to us is a bit complex. You visit, but back at home you still have insurgency, insecurity that happening, but the Jagaban is there to us.
Yeah, and he had the comments, welcoming comments, King Charles there talking about hosting a jollof and tea party.
Wow, interesting.
And being told that the best jollof is, of course, from Nigeria. Of course, there's that debate, of course, right, between
Nigeria and Ghana.
Nigeria and Ghana, where is the best jollof from? So
absolutely, that is a soft power, cultural diplomacy.
King
you don't
Charles,
eat hamburger and coke there. You eat jollof.
King Charles nailing his colors to the mast and saying Nigerian jollof is the best. Anyway, let's move on. You don't get to hear about Italy and its investments on the African continent and supporting infrastructural development, but that is exactly what's happening in Ethiopia.
Indeed, Tulas, but is it not at the back foot of the AU summit, Tulas? Remember, Italy had an Africa-Italy summit, actually, and now, and again, contradiction here. Italy wanted to invade Ethiopia, actually invaded Ethiopia during the time of Emperor Haile Selassie. But now here they are saying they are supporting the big project, the Bishop to Airport, Tulas, with the financing of the hydropower project. And now that's where you see the Minister of Finance from Ethiopia, Ahmed Shidi, meeting with his counterpart from Italy, Gigliotti, and the Minister of Economy, looking at bilateral projects. Remember, Bishop Tulas is a flagship international airport now. That will be an interlink, the interconnecting airport in Ethiopia. As we are stranded with Dubai and all those places, Tulas, Ethiopia remains, but it might be a long one, but it still remains at the biggest airport that will be built in the land of Haile Selassie. But World Bank is also in support. But Italy, to us, like I say, it's a strategic initiative to promote sustainable and inclusive economic growth.
And then in Namibia, sweeping changes to the leadership, especially in Parliament, the National Assembly, sweeping changes in the composition of the SWAPO caucus and its leadership.
That is quite true, Tulas. You spoke about musical chairs earlier. Now we see it in the parliament in Windhoek in terms of your standing committees, parliamentary friendship groups, multilateral organizations. Very important aspect. When members of parliament, Tulas, they sit in the parliamentary groups, whether in PAP, the Pan-African Parliament, the SADC Parliamentary Forum, the Commonwealth. It's very important. Why are you there, Tulas? When you have MPs participating in what they call Venezuela Parliamentary Friendship Group. Now, SWAPO shifting most of their key leaders also in the top six of the party, Tulas, and putting some of the ministers. And that's where I saw the impact being on the issues around interparliamentary union. I checked also they had the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association shifting some of the key members there. But you don't know what is the reason behind Tulas. Either they're not active, they're becoming what we call developmental tourist diplomats. Tulas. They don't bring any value to their party or to the state, and sometimes you have these musical chairs.
Lastly, then, Sipho, your historical archive. 2 chapters that you are opening this morning. 19 March 1996 as well as 19 March 2002. What happened in both instances?
Tulas, it's almost 30 years when we know that there was a divorce case happening between the two great people in this country, Nomzamo Winnie Mandela and Nelson Mandela, when they divorced, and Judge Elof granted this divorce decree. The issues you know, Tulas, in family law, loss of marriage, when you divorce, they use that word, irreconcilable differences, where you cannot share even the bedroom, you don't share the kitchen, Tulas. So there are reasons for parting. Remember, they were married since 1958, and this divorce indeed had an impact also to the families, of both sides. But this happened 30 years ago. 2002, 2004 years ago, Zimbabwe being suspended from the Commonwealth of Nations. I normally play with the words, I call it common poverty. There's no Commonwealth there. Commonwealth of Nations after the 2001 elections, when you recall that those moments to us, that announcement was made by the Troika. The former President Thabo Mbeki was there to us, and we were being told that we were practicing quiet diplomacy during that time. Zimbabwe was being suspended. And you'll recall Dambuzo 2017, after the coup or not a coup, but scholars they say it was a constitutional coup to us. The court assisted that coup. But 2017, Dambuzo wanted to go back to the Commonwealth. If you can still recall, to us, to can work together. But 2002, on this day, that's where Zimbabwe was suspended from the Common Poverty of Nations. Asante sana Thulas, as was still leading the true conversation SAFM.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update for this morning.
This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights, just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges, Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A couple of issues around the Marlborough part of Joburg. So we're going to crash on the Mike 1 South between Woodmead Drive and Marlborough Drive. So the Mike 1 coming off the M1 Buccleuch, very slow on your way through to Sandton. And just up the road on Marlborough Drive, truckers lost a load of cement between Far East Bank and the N3 highway. So some unusual queues there as well. Backlogging on Andrew Petway just north of Zeefontein, Allendale. So if you're going in or out of Tembisa, heads up. There's some very heavy traffic there this morning. And the R55 coming out of Centurion. If you're leaving Laudium, you're going to be asked to queue heavily R55 towards Vreda Road. So make sure you've got time to get through that one or take an alternative. And the N4 Bequeta Highway queuing to get into the N1 South after Durham Port Plaza as the roadworks continue to have an impact there. Durban up to Pietermaritzburg, quite slow. Keyridge through to Cliffdale. There's traffic on the M13 joining from Old Main Hillcrest down through the Central Kloof area this morning. Looking quite busy. And the N2 North is under a bit of pressure on the run through to the Gateway exit if you're on your way up to the airport. Delays from Komarshu Highway. Cape Town, the traffic light has taken a full smack on Robert Sobukwe at Stellenbosch Arterial. A vehicle crashing off the roadway and straight into that traffic light. So that's just causing some problems there. Also, no lights working on the M7 R300 junction out of Mitchell's Plain. So very slow again as you come out. Day 2 of problems leaving Mitchell's Plain on both of those routes towards Philippi and Sabora Michelle. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths from balconies, staircases and cliffs, where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3. This February, fall in love with the journey. No phones, no flights. Just determination, connection, and the open road. From breathtaking landscapes to unexpected challenges. Race Across the World is back. Bigger, bolder, and more emotional than ever. Because sometimes the best way to find yourself is to travel together. Race Across the World Season 4, Thursdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
6 minutes to 7. For millions of South Africans planning Easter travel, The question is no longer just where to go, but it might just be whether they'll get there at all. Those particularly who use buses to travel. Wage negotiations between bus operators and the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, SATAU, have collapsed, with a formal certificate of non-resolution now issued, opening the door to strike action. At the heart of the dispute is a widening gap between what workers say is a livable wage and what employers insist is financially sustainable in a strained transport sector. The timing of it could hardly be more consequential, with the Easter weekend looming as one of the busiest travel periods of the year. Let's unpack what we're talking about. I'm joined by Jack Mazibuko, General Secretary of the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, SATAU. Good morning and thank you for your time. What has brought us to this point? What are the differences in terms of what workers are demanding and what the employers are offering?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, to you and your listeners at home, and thank you very much for having SATAU on your show. I think it is important to clarify that the wage negotiation process has started early this year, where labor has put the demand, and across the board, labor has always demanded 10% for the first year and 10% for the following year. And then during the negotiation, labor understood the negotiations protocol that parties must be able to persuade and allowed to be persuaded. That's where the labor has now moved from the initial position of 10% to 6.5 first year and 7.5 for the following year. All these things were done just to accommodate the employer in order to avert the strike. The unfortunate part is that the employer are moving with a very minimal, a small percentage, because they are only offering labor for the first year 3.25% and the following year 3.5%, which is quite unreasonable. And then that is why labor has rejected this offer and accepted the certificate to strike. As things stands, the parties in line with the council protocol agreement, we are in a 30 days cool-off period, which means that should the other party willing to come back to the table, the unions are always ready to engage with the employer within this period. But unfortunately, if employers are not coming to table, the unions are ready to take to go ahead with the strike.
And in my introduction, I talk about the potential impact on Easter travel. There's a reason for that, isn't there? The timings, tell me about the timings and how they work out between this certificate of non-resolution and the cooling off period and the potential start of any strike.
No, that's true. Should it happen that the employers are not coming to party to maybe to revisit their offer, unfortunately, we'll be left with no option but to embark on the strike. But at least we still have 30 days for the parties to find each other, to consult their constituencies. And then it might have a negative impact to the Easters, and even beyond the Easters, the commuters will be seriously affected nationally across the country.
Who are the bus company employers that are in the main involved in this? In other words, I'm trying to gauge the extent of any disruption that may be brought about by a strike.
We are engaging with the employers at the level of the bargaining council, meaning that 80% of the employers that are operating within the passenger sector, be it the big companies like your Greyhound and Translux, you name them, all of them, we are engaging with them in the bargaining council. So when there is a dispute, the dispute will affect the entire country, all the companies that operate in buses nationally.
And there are certain demands that are on the table that have to do specifically with the welfare of drivers that drive buses over long distances. Tell me a bit more about those.
That is so true. And then what we are also demanding, there is this thing called a private hire in the passenger sector. It got nothing to do with the conditions of employment, but it's got to do with the interest of the client. Meaning, should it happen that there is a client that wants to hire a bus from Gauteng to Moria, employee that drive that bus, we request him to be paid at least 500 per 100 kilometers, or to be paid 900 across the entire trip, which is something that the employer is rejecting. There are other employees who are our members that travel across the different borders, Lesotho, Mozambique, Botswana, and so on. We are requesting that the employer at least to adjust the cross-border allowances from 800 to 900. And the employer is rejecting that proposal as well. And then we also request that the employer to give the double driver, meaning the double driver is when the employees have to drive the bus a longer distance. They need to travel. They need to be two in the bus. So we are saying employer must give them at least adjustment of 900 per each driver, and the employer is rejecting that. Those are the other demands that we are demanding from the employer, which we are not getting a joy.
Lastly, and very briefly, within this 30-day cooling off period, is there any likelihood that you would declare a strike, giving that 48-hour notice, or will you comply and abide by the rules? We cannot expect something of that nature happening.
The rules are the rules. We'll be abided by the rules, meaning we'll declare that this will go on strike because the dispute has already been declared. We'll go on strike after 30 days. However, we must put on record to the public and to the employers that are listening to this show that it is not in the interest of the union to take workers on a strike. The union is always available to engage with the employer to find an amicable solution to the problem. And we are calling the employer to come back on the table of negotiation to engage with us.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. Jack Mazibugwa is General Secretary of the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, SATAU. Let's go to Ann Musa, who's standing by with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, 3 suspected hijackers killed in Benoni, and Sergeant Nkosi returns to the Matlanga Commission. Good morning. 3 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Police say this follows a high-speed chase after a hijacking, attempted murder and kidnapping incident in Crystal Park. The victim was rescued unharmed. Officers found 2 firearms and some of the possessions belonging to the victim. Member of Gauteng's organised crime unit, Fani Nkosi, will return to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. Yesterday, the Commission heard Nkosi had forwarded a list of bidders for a Tshwane Municipal Police Department tender to a man only referred to as Mr. Mampane. The man is alleged to have been the late taxi boss, Mswazi Msibi's right-hand person. Msibi is believed to have been a member of what is referred to as the Big Five cartel. Sibahle Mota reports.
Evidence leader Advocate Matthew Sharkelson questioned Sergeant Nkosi about why he sent Mr. Mampane the list of bidders for the Tshwane Municipal Police Department tender. While Sergeant Nkosi was reluctant to respond, he finally told the Commission that Mr. Mampane had also applied for the tender. Nkosi further defended his actions, saying that the document was already in the public domain. Sergeant Nkosi's testimony before the Matlanga Commission has consistently demonstrated that he shares information that is considered to be confidential with those believed to be linked to the criminal cartel.
The KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says Senzo Mchunu is no longer fit to be police minister. This follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to the questions of Parliament's ad hoc committee. Ramaphosa says Mchunu did not consult him about his decision to disband the political killing stars team. Ramaphosa also says Mchunu only informed him in February last year, despite issuing a directive that the disbandment should happen on the 31st of December of 2024. This was the reaction of Mkhwanazi to the contradiction when he appeared before the committee yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm an official. For me to start talking about decisions that the president must take might not be fair. However, having seen what we have seen and having read and listen to what has been presented before these two structures, it's clear that Minister Mkhunu is no longer fit to run this Department of Police. I don't know about other departments.
The Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment Deputy Minister, Bernice Swartz, has called for effective solutions to the country's waste management crisis. She says they include stronger municipal waste management and a shift in the behaviour of members of the public. Swartz was speaking at a waste management conference in Bloemfontein yesterday.
So it's for us to find better ways of how we manage waste, because it all boils down to how we manage the waste. Because we cannot ask ourselves whether the waste is there. It is there, and there's a lot of waste. And the other thing that we need to talk about is that all our waste ends up in the landfill sites. So we need to have a frank discussion. What is it that goes to the landfill sites that should not be there? And how do we make sure that it does not get there? So a lot of what we're going to discuss there also is how do we work with communities? How do we educate communities around waste?
And finally, thousands of Turkish demonstrators gathered outside Istanbul City Hall last night. They marked the first anniversary of the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu's arrival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's arrest.
Supporters waving opposition banners and Turkish flags gathered in their thousands, chanting messages of support for the detained mayor amid a large police presence. Mr. İmamoğlu, who had been widely viewed as a serious challenger to President Erdogan in the country's next presidential election, is currently on trial, facing numerous charges, including corruption. He denies them all. Mr. Erdogan's government has denied political interference, insisting that Turkey's courts operate independently.
Recapping the top story, 3 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Police say this follows a high-speed chase after a hijacking, attempted murder and kidnapping incident in Crystal Park. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
Without insurance, saving on your car insurance feels like finding a till with no queue on payday weekend. 27-year-old Lynn saves a mind-blowing 638 Rand on her 2025 Haval Jolion. Get a quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It is soccer news. The CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, defends the judicial independence after Senegal is stripped of their AFCON title. And in golf, Live Golf South Africa tees off today, a historic first on African soil. We'll have the details at around 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Another busy run out of Boksburg and Benoni. Well, Benoni and Boksburg, let's put it that way, queues into a stationary vehicle around Atlas Road. And then there's another breakdown just coming in at Rondebolt. And then there's a big queue between Jet Park and Craft Road. So big delays there this morning on your way out of that Benoni area. Crash on the Mike 1 South before Marlborough Drive. And on Marlborough Drive, a truck has lost a load of cement out by the N3 highway. So quite heavy in that Marlborough Gardens area. Durban N2 routing north, slow going up towards the Gateway exit if you're on your way to the airport. Backlogs before you get to the Komashu exit. N3 Cliffdale is heavy, backlogs to Key Ridge. M13 Hillcrest to Kloof, looking quite slow around Maytime as well. Cape Town collision Robert Sobukwe 35th Avenue causing some delays at that very busy junction, and the N7 jamming up this morning from Vangate Mall all the way through Langa in towards Epping and the roadworks. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7. Welcome to it, the second hour of the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107. It is great to be in your company. We have a special guest in this half hour, Mteto Nyati, chairperson of the Eskom board. And now that the fires of load shedding seem to have been put out, right, we now have that moment and opportunity to actually pause and reflect on the journey of fixing the country's energy system, the power system. What does it look like? And for the longest time, I was saying that we were told that part of it will involve a systemic overhaul, breaking Eskom apart into smaller and more manageable entities that will be specialized in what they do. So that work has now started. Among the conversations we'll be having, we'll be talking about Eskom Green, for example. You remember, I think a couple of weeks ago, when President Ramaphosa was delivering the State of the Nation address, there was a figure that he gave. That by a certain date, I'm not remembering my dates now, but basically in the near future, a significant amount of the country's electricity will be from renewables and that kind of energy. So therefore, it falls on entities such as Eskom and their new Eskom Green to give us and chart the way forward. There are other bits of work that are taking place. Presidential task team on the formation of the transmission system operator. There's that conversation as well. So there's a lot going on, but at the same time, issues about while we have moved from availability of electricity, energy availability factor being one of those measures, we now talk affordability. That seems to be the new emerging conversation. And I see some of you have already started sending some of those messages with your own questions for the Eskom chairperson. So we'll start that conversation in a moment. Do give me a call, 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
This February, fall in love with friendships that feel like family. Old bonds, new beginnings, and chapters that remind us why love, in all its forms, matters. The story comes full circle in The Best Man, the final chapters, where love, loyalty, and life collide one last time. Because some stories stay with you long after the final scene. The Best Man, the final chapters, weeknights 7 p.m. only on S3. The Love. S3.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable, and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign in to the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
13 minutes after 7 to that conversation I've been promising you. The conversation about the country's electricity system is no longer just about keeping the lights on, but it's about fundamentally redesigning the system that powers the economy. Eskom's long-promised unbundling is now moving into a more decisive phase with separate generation, transmission, and distribution entities taking shape amid political contestation and perhaps a level of labor resistance. At the same time, the utility is attempting to pivot towards a greener future through its new renewable-focused entity, a move that raises as many questions as it answers about investment, pricing, and grid stability. Eskom board chairperson Mteto Nyati has come into studio to have a wide-ranging conversation with me. Good morning, and thank you for coming through. We don't get many guests who are willing to wake up early and come into studio, so we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Thulas, for having me here. And, so listened to my team, and my team said, "Look, it's best if you wake up and go and have the conversation in person." So yeah.
So we'll delve into the issues around the unbundling of Eskom and where things stand with the various entities. But I think a natural starting point for many South Africans is a state of the power system, state of the grid. I don't expect you to talk megawatts and the likes, but I do expect you to give us a general sense of where do we stand. We're framing it as load shedding now being a thing of the past. Is it? And can we firmly say we can now move on to focus on other performance issues?
Yeah. Look, the board that I'm part of was appointed in 2022 in October. When we arrived, it was, of course, in a state of crisis where we're often getting a stage 6 load shedding. Our priority was to make sure that we address that crisis. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the leadership of Eskom under Dan and the employees of Eskom for making sure that now load shedding is behind us. You know, we set out a plan. At that time, it was a 2-year plan to make sure that we get to an energy availability factor of 70%. And I must say that we have consistently been getting to those levels. And that's fantastic. In many, many situations in our country, when people have got plans, they never deliver on those plans. Yeah. And you saw the team in Eskom and demonstrating that with the right kind of leadership, people can be able to execute. So load shedding is behind us. The good thing about that is that it helps us now to think ahead. Yeah. We need to think about the future. How do we position this company to continue to be relevant in the future? Because you want an Eskom in the future. Mm-hmm.
And before we get to that future, would I be correct in saying that much of the implementation phase of that plan to put load shedding behind us was focused on the generation part of what you do? You are not talking transmission, you are not talking distribution. Did you spend much of your energy on generation, and what exactly did you fix in generation?
Yeah, so when it comes to energy security, the unit or the division that was not performing was generation, because that's where all of our power stations, they fall under generation. And the big challenge that we're having there was the fact that many of those power stations were not maintained. It's the sad story of our country when we've got an infrastructure, and when that infrastructure is not taken care of, and it fails. And many people, the prevailing view at the time by leadership of Eskom was that, hey, you've got all of this old infrastructure, we need to just retire it. As engineers, I am a mechanical engineer. We just could not understand that thinking, because there is no such a thing as an old anything when it comes to mechanical things. If you take care of stuff, you know, I've got a car now, it's 10 years, it continues to serve me. Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be serving me another 10 years if I take care of it. So we came with that mentality, and that the good thing is that the employees of Eskom believed the same thing as well, completely different from what their leaders were believing. Mm-hmm. And we worked together with employees of Eskom to fix things. We provided them with the funds that they needed. We made sure that we established connections with the original equipment manufacturers that had been broken. We connected them, and we are now in a situation where we've got excess electricity. That's a great position. But we do not like that, because we want to be able to sell this excess electricity.
So we're at that point.
Yeah, that's where we are now. Wow. Yes. Wow. So when people say, hey, okay, what happens if our the GDP growth goes to 3%? We are there. Please test us. Yeah. You know, we would really like to see it, you know, because we believe we can go up to 3%. We can go up to 3.5%. Test us.
Wow, that is amazing to hear. So now that we are at this point, I believe you're now able to envision and start to put to action some of the grander plans that seemed grand at the time that they were being announced, unbundling of Eskom being a key one. Talk to me about where we stand with the various entities that were meant to be established, capacitated, and in a way start functioning, almost not independently, but being part of the Eskom group.
Yes.
Which ones have been established?
So we, back in 2019, at the time under the late Pravin Gordhan, the government made a decision to unbundle Eskom 2019. And that was a policy decision. Our responsibility as Eskom and the board is to execute that. So because of load shedding, people have not been paying attention to that. So we, over the last 2 years, we have taken a strong focus on making sure that we execute. So we're breaking that organization up into 3 entities initially. That's what we felt. When we came as a new board, we felt, no, man, the way that this has been structured is such that Eskom is not going to be participating in renewables. It's all the IPPs that are going to be participating in renewables. Eskom is being boxed to just look after the coal-fired power stations. And the question is, when those come to the end of life, what will happen to Eskom? We realize, no, Eskom needs to participate in the new. That's when we came up with the 4th unit, which is Eskom Green. Now we've got 4 entities that we are driving. Over the first one to come out is the National Transmission Company of South Africa. We call it NTCSA. We've set it up. It's outside of Eskom, 100% subsidiary of Eskom. Independent board. That's very important because you need to have these entities operating independently. And the next one to be coming out is distribution, and will be followed. The last one will be generation. Yeah. The problem with distribution right now is that when we're looking at that next step, we can't, because it's owed by municipalities 110 billion rand, which means as a standalone, it's not going to be viable. So we need to fix that as a problem.
What does fixing that look like? Because you talked to one of the issues that one of our listeners has actually put forward, Thulani Dasa in Cape Town, asking municipalities owe Eskom billions. What decisive action is being taken to recover this debt?
So, on our side, we've taken all sorts of actions. I mean, if you look at them here from the media, we've taken some of these municipalities to court. We're dragging them. Many of them, you have heard that Ekurhuleni, we've just signed an agreement with Ekurhuleni that over the next 2 years, they will be paying off our debt. We did the same with the city of Tshwane when they are paying a great leadership there from Nasipi, who has been consistently paying down that debt. We've also, last year, we concluded an agreement with the city of Johannesburg, and they are paying their debt off. But think about this. I mean, really, why should we be in the situation where entities like this are comfortable with just taking services from Eskom and not paying for them? So that, to me, is a huge issue around our country and the values of our country. What kind of role modeling is that, where you've got these municipalities just choosing to take stuff for free, and they are collecting from the residents, but not paying to Eskom? That's something that's not acceptable. We need to be putting pressure to where it belongs. We need to be putting pressure on the leadership of these entities to practice the right things.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more then about the unbundling. To what extent have you been able to overcome some of the mistrust that has been there? One of our listeners says, is this a gateway to sell off Eskom or the South African energy system to the highest bidder? And I'm sure you've heard that question a number of times. And as we speak right now, you're facing a threat of strike action by some unions.
Yeah, we need to separate. The issues here. If you look at the unbundling from the get-go in 2019, when it was announced, which was made very clear by our government that this unbundling is not privatization. It's the unbundling. You separate these entities so that they can compete in their individual spaces effectively. They can be much more agile. They can have their own boards that direct their strategy, so that when they are facing competition, they can be laser focused. Instead of bundling everything in one, you end up with entities that are unable to compete in their individual spaces. So the intention here is to have efficient organizations, these little babies of Eskom, very efficient, each one focusing and competing in their space with whoever comes in from the private sector, but wholly owned by government, by Eskom.
And then the one that is to
So I said let's separate. Then there is this the labor matter. It's got nothing to do necessarily with this one is about the announcement that was made by the president around the assets of National Transmission Company being moved into the TSO.
Yes.
So that's their issue. They feel that move is going to weaken Eskom.
Yeah, in fact, you take me to the next question I was going to ask. The National Transmission Company,
yes,
NTCSA,
yeah,
and the Transmission System Operator.
Yes.
What's the difference there, and what's Eskom's role in both of those?
Okay, so there is an act that is governing all of this. It's called ERA Act, Energy Regulation Amendment Act. That act, which was passed last year, it comes out and say we need to have in this industry a transmission system operator. It's going to be an independent entity that governs the buying and the selling of electricity, because now you no longer have only Eskom as being the producer of electricity. You've got all of these IPPs. So you need to be buying and selling. And as a buyer, I can say, Thulas maybe is one of the IPPs. Say, okay, I want to sell my electricity today at 30 cents. The going rate, maybe yesterday it was 40, 50 cents. They come in and they will be running that market. It's more like a stock exchange. That's part and parcel of trying to drive down the costs. So that entity should be independent. It cannot be attached to one of the producers of energy. So the Act rightly said it should be staying out of Eskom, and that's where it should be. But it said at the time when it has not been formed, we are asking NTCSA to act in its capacity until such time that it's been formed. So NTCSA today is playing the role, but in the future that role will be played by an independent TSO.
Yeah.
So other people are saying, no, let NTCSA become the TSO.
All right. So I'm trying to prioritize so that we fit in as many questions as possible. The one that keeps coming to the fore on the WhatsApp line has to do with load reduction.
Yes.
That in fact, this one person says it's a pity you celebrate days without load shedding while we are getting hammered with 4 hours of power cuts where they call them load reduction. What's the best answer of the solve for load reduction, and how far are you with solving that once and for all?
I can tell South Africa that problem will be solved not just by Eskom, it will be solved by all of us, because the root cause of that problem is not Eskom. It's got nothing to do with it. We've got enough energy. As I was saying to you, we've got excess energy. So that's not the problem. It's not like we're running out of energy. That's why we are doing load reduction. The reason why we're doing load reduction is that at a local level where we've got a transformer serving, let's say, 10,000 people, that transformer has been designed to serve 10,000 people. Then you have illegal connections that make that now is that transformer is no longer serving 10,000, serving 50,000 people. To protect that transformer from exploding because of all of these people connecting to it at the same time, you then do load reduction to protect the infrastructure. The issue is illegal connections. So what we then now doing to make sure that we do not punish people who are paying for electricity, we are introducing smart meters that will then differentiate so that we don't punish people who are paying. Those who are paying then continue to have, and those who are not paying, they won't get the electricity. That is why some communities are stopping us from implementing the smart meters, because they want to continue to have electricity that is free. So this is a societal problem, Thulas.
So outside of the end of illegal connections, the other potential shorter pathway to solving this problem would be the installation of these smart meters.
Yes, smart meters allows us to be able to say, is this person paying or not? And if he's not paying, we won't get electricity. If you are paying, you get. So we don't have a load reduction to people that are paying.
Yeah.
Those who are not paying, it's not load. Yeah.
Let me end off with the core of the conversation, because the main part that we wanted to discuss with you were these entities, and in particular Eskom Green. Is it informed by the experience of perhaps the first approaches towards more sustainable energy sources in the country, and the lessons of the closure of that power station, and you are seeking to perhaps have a different conversation where you are not just a buyer in the green energy space, but actually also a producer?
Look, the strategy that we found in Eskom was not a great strategy, because if we were to continue with that strategy, there would not be an Eskom, let's say, in 40 years' time, because we'll be retiring power stations, not building new. See, which means we are allowing only the private sector, the IPPs, to participate. We then made one decision, that we are going to participate. We are going to be building the renewable businesses. That's why Eskom Green, So it's informed by the fact that as we have a responsibility as the board to ensure that this entity continues into the future. It should not die. We cannot be presiding over an entity that is we are seeing slowly dying and we're comfortable. No, we need to have an Eskom in the future. At the same time, renewable energy alone is not the answer to our problems. Not, because as all of you would know, that when we've got inclement weather and we've got that, let's say, for 2 or 3 days, all of that demand comes back into Eskom. People say, oh, okay, I am off grid, but you've got poor weather for a day or two, and they slowly, quietly come back into Eskom. You need to have what is called, the load, being able to have dispatchable energy. And that dispatchable energy comes from the coal-fired power stations. It comes from nuclear, and that is what Eskom need to be known for as well in the future. We need to have base load.
All right. I've got to leave it there. Unfortunately, we can never exhaust all the questions. They keep coming in, I promise you.
Yeah.
And I'm just battling. I suppose we would need a whole hour.
Yeah.
And for that, I suppose you would have to come back to one of our other shows. But thank you for coming through. Mteto Nyati, chairperson of the Eskom board, taking as many questions as possible within this limited time. And I am late for the news headlines, so let me go straight to N.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, corruption related to the awarding of contracts for water tankers in the city of Tshwane have resurfaced. Action SA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, says there is falsified information regarding the awarding of contracts to companies linked to Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise. 3 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Police say this follows a high-speed chase after a hijacking, attempted murder and kidnapping incident in Crystal Park. The victim was rescued unharmed. And member of Gauteng's organised crime unit, Fanny Nkosi, will return to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. It's a very busy one around the Greater Durban area. There's been a crash on the M4 near Riverside. This is just north of Blue Lagoon. So if you're coming out of Mhlanga, it's heavier than normal, passing Virginia Airport and then on the way down towards Blue Lagoon. Also northbound, driving up into that crash, also under pressure as well. Collision before Sherwood on the N3. So coming in from Pavilion, it's heavy. Coming off the N2 north and south onto the N3 via Spaghetti Junction. There's a bad backlog as well. N2 running north, crash before Gateway. So heavy from Queen Nundy this morning, and we're still queuing up around the Key Ridge area on your way out to Pietermaritzburg. A lot of traffic lights down around Pietermaritzburg in the Mountain Rise and Rosedale area, so all sorts of delays on routes in that part of town this morning. Joburg, a truck losing its load on Marlborough Drive between Far East Bank and the N3 highway, very slow getting through there. Crash on the Mike 1 South before Marlborough Drive, backlogging traffic from N1 Allendale Road. That's looking quite slow and still very busy coming out of Benoni all the way through to around about Craft Road this morning. A couple of incidents around Atlas Road and around Craft Road itself. R55 leading Laudium, expect a queue down to Vrede Road. And if you're around Cape Town, pretty busy. The N7 passing Langa to Epping, very slow going. And the N1 out of town, that fatal crash at Old Oak Road causing a delay from Belleville in towards the Brackenfell area. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. So fair is fair, right? If things go well, we give credit to the president of KEF. And, you know, if you're in charge of an organization like Mteto Nyati is, if things are going well, we give you credit. But if things go wrong, you must also take the blame. And he's taking quite a bit of that flack is Patrice Motsepe, yeah?
Hey, good morning to us. Absolutely. Patrice Motsepe is standing by. As much as, fair is fair, unless the result changes after the final whistle, that it doesn't feel so fair to the one team. But yes, CAF President Patrice Motsepe responding to the growing criticism following the controversial decision to strip Senegal of their Africa Cup of Nations title and award it to Morocco. Motsepe has reiterated that CAF's judicial bodies operate independently and that their rulings must be respected.
The work that we are still dealing with concerning the suspicion and distrust, it's a legacy issue. When I became president, one of the major concerns was the impartiality, the independence, and the respect of referees and match commissioners. And a lot of good work has been done, but there continues to be suspicion because it's a legacy issue. It's something that has been there for many years, and we consistently deal with that because that's critically important.
In the meantime, newly appointed Al Ittihad Tripoli coach Rulani Mokoena has opened up about his recent departure from LC Alger. The 39-year-old says his exit from the Algerian side was far more difficult than it appeared. Mokoena has described the experience as emotional.
It was extremely difficult, it was not an easy decision, but we felt that the timing was right, and even though it could have been under better circumstances, but the timing was right, and that's what we felt. And there was a bigger project that we could do, so we also felt that to move into this direction was good, but was very difficult because you have to break down connections with people, and that's what we live with. Unfortunately, we live in a difficult moment, but we live with a big connection with the players, big connection with the president, big connection with the fans, and so it was very difficult because it's a great club. It's a great club, very historic, and with a lot of potential for future success.
And back home, Golden Arrows and Stellenbosch FC playing out to a 1-1 draw in their Betway Premiership clash in Durban. Cycling, South Africa's Mark Pritson and Swiss rider Felix Stel claimed a superb victory on Stage 3 of the Absa Cape Epic. The Honeycomb 2226ers, they launched a late attack to win the 140-kilometer stage from Montague to Greyton in tough, wet conditions. Overnight leaders Matt Beers and Tristan Nokia lost the yellow jersey after an early puncture. In the women's race, Candice Lill and Alessandra Keller secured a fourth straight stage win, tightening their grip on the overall lead. And finally, Live Golf South Africa tees off today, 10 a.m. at Steyn City in Johannesburg, marking the tournament's first ever event on African soil. A star-studded field, including the local favourites Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Schwartzel, Brandon Grace and Dean Burmester, alongside the global names like John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau. The event features a $30 million purse and is expected to deliver a major boost to the local economy, with thousands of fans set to attend. That's your sport. You can swing back at the top of the hour. We'll bring you more here on the Morning Brief. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
All right, back for the second update of the morning is Ntauleng Lechela. And Ntauleng, let's talk inflation. It's smack bang on the dot where the sub wants it.
Exactly, slowing more than expected to 3% in February, down from 3.5% in January. And this was supported partly by delayed increases in some medical aid rates. During the month, food inflation also slowed. This has been a cause of concern, particularly when it comes to meat prices, beef prices, with the foot and mouth disease ongoing. We did see meat prices still elevated but a slowdown, and that of course then helping food inflation tick lower to 3.7% from 4.4% in January. Now, despite the softer print, no cause to celebrate, of course, because of the rising oil price and how that will then filter through to inflation in the next coming months. And so economists expect the SARB to leave rates unchanged in the near term. Economists further warning that inflation could start accelerating from April as pressures around energy prices start feeding through. As a result, the central bank will likely push back any further rate cuts. We will, of course, hear from Governor Lesetja Kganyago next week, Thursday.
Yeah. So the tone we expect is hawkish.
Yes, definitely. Definitely hawkish, following from what we've heard from the Fed. The tone there is really, really cautious, and we're likely to hear that. Policymakers have also said that they will be updating their scenarios in the January meeting. Sub Governor Lesetja Kganyago did highlight scenarios where the rand weakens and oil prices go up. But what we've seen is the rand weaken even more than what the SARB had estimated, and oil go up even more than the SARB had estimated. So we'll probably also see changes to those scenarios as well.
Quickly the picture changes, right?
Yeah, Wow. But I mean, he called it. Let's be quite honest. Many were quite disappointed in the SARB leaving rates unchanged in January. And the governor did highlight, he said there are geopolitical risks at play, and he'd rather play it safe, be cautious at that point. And look at what's playing out now.
Sure. Let's talk retail sales. You're saying that they picked up in January. What drove that?
So sales growth is gaining momentum to us, with retail sales rising 4.2% year on year in January, up from a revised 2.5% in December. The increase mainly being driven by strong demand for textiles, clothing, footwear and leather goods, which surged 9.9%. I'm assuming...
Did you say leather goods?
Leather goods. And, talking about leather goods, it's a great segue.
Wait. The listeners are not interested in what...
Great. I will
story.
circle back to that. But talking retail sales figures, I suspect the January print was boosted by uniform sales, parents buying uniform in the month of January. Now, other retailers performed well, growing 10.3%, while general dealers added modest gains. Now, on a monthly basis, sales volumes rose 0.9%, reversing December's a decline. And then over the 3 months period to January, sales were up 3.3%. Now, the improvement reflects some relief for consumers as inflation eased in January, supporting spending. However, of course, that outlook remains uncertain. Higher fuel prices and rising costs linked to elevated oil prices are expected to squeeze households, while interest rates are likely to remain unchanged in the near term, limiting further support for consumers. Talking about consumers, Thulasizwe is also a consumer, and there are leather goods that we'd like to hear about. A leather bag we discussed in the first hour of the show. Care to share?
Why did you come into studio? Okay, before we get to the markets, here's my story. Actually, I feel like I took advantage of people. Like hours later, I'm starting to feel guilty. I'm like, maybe I took advantage.
Yes.
So yesterday, I had to buy one or two things for. Yeah, there's a shoot that we're doing at SABC TV and all of that. And so I needed a tie, and I go there to get a tie. And while I'm there, I remember that actually I need a laptop bag. And I see this leather bag, it's there, and the price tag says 800 Rand. And I calculate that. Okay, let me take it. It's fine. It's nothing fancy.
Okay.
It'll do the job. I get to the till. They scan. This thing comes back. It says 1 cent.
Yay.
1 cent. I'd even forgotten how you write 1 cent. It's 0.01. That's it. So this guy who's helping me is puzzled, and he thinks he did something wrong.
Yes.
So he calls his supervisor, and they form a committee of some sort, and they're standing there trying to figure out what's going on. Why is this bag 1 cent? So I'm standing there tapping my card, and I'm ready. Just tell me the
You're
price.
like, I need to go. Let's go.
Yeah. I don't have the whole day. Long story short, turns out this range of bags was discontinued.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not meant to be on the floor, I suppose. And therefore, their system doesn't allow, and they don't have a way to charge me more than the 1 cent that is being reflected when they scan.
So basically, Christmas came early.
Very early. So I bought it at 1952 prices. 1 penny.
Oh, no, Christmas came early. It was a late, belated birthday present.
It was
yeah, the universe was working in.
I wasn't going to quibble with the price.
Yeah, no.
I said to myself, bring it to me. Are you sure? They said, yeah, we're sure. Okay, great. Swiped, got out of there. Anyway, let's get to more important things.
Yes, the markets, right?
Yes.
Christmas not coming early for traders, that's for sure. Over in Asia, markets sinking deeper into the red as the war intensifies, with energy facilities being targeted, and that fueling the risk of sentiment. The Japanese Nikkei leading the losses on that front, down over 3%. And then over on Wall Street, futures are flat. Traders there digesting the Fed's comments around the war, with Jerome Powell flagging inflationary risks as crude remains elevated. Talking energy, crude up 3.5% this hour to $106 a barrel. That also weighing on the JSE, with the all share losing over 3% overnight. The rand also under pressure this hour at 16.98 to the dollar, 22.53 to the pound, and 19.47 to the euro.
Take care of the National Bank. Darling Lechela will come back with one more update for you, and that's just after 8:30, in which update she'll give you a sense of where the markets are likely to go on this Thursday.
This February, love the truth, no matter how unsettling it is. They were called accidents, a slip, a fall, a tragic mistake. But what if they weren't? Fatal fall, murder or accident investigates suspicious deaths. From balconies, staircases and cliffs, where one question refuses to go away. Did someone push them? Through forensic science and haunting testimony, the truth is uncovered. Fatal fall, murder or accident. Tuesdays 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Red Bulls and the Krijgkouwers are on a mission to finish the season as high as possible, with ambition driving every pass and every tackle. The question is simple: who wants it more? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the thrilling battle between RB Leipzig and TSG Hoffenheim this Friday, 20 March at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, just a reminder, if you're driving out of Laudium, side of Pretoria, and you're heading south, just factor in a big queue of traffic this morning. R55 down to Vrede Road. Not much to do, or not much in the way of alternative routes. Otherwise, you could probably hit down the main road, I guess, Lenshin Street, work your way around that, come back on south of Vrede if you know what you're doing. But it is a heavy queue to get through. The N4, Bakwena Highway onto the M1 after Durbanport Plaza. Roadworks there still causing some problems as well today. Joburg, breakdown on the M1 North at Winnie Mandela. Quite heavy backlogs from Randburg. In fact, from just after 14th Avenue all the way through to Winnie Mandela slow. And then you've got problems getting in on Beyers Naudé, and particularly coming in off Malabongwe, trying to get into the N1 North, which is pretty jammed solidly this morning. The Mike Weiner crash at Marlborough Drive earlier this morning, still causing a delay coming off the N1 South through Midram as you head slowly into Sandton. And that lost load of cement powder out on Marlborough Drive between Far East Bank and the N3, causing a big delay if you're trying to get out towards the highway. And it also is now having an impact coming up the N3 North, wanting to off-ramp at Marlborough Drive. Crossing to Durban, an earlier crash on the M4. This is the Ruth First Highway, so the northern side of central Durban. That crash near Blue Lagoon. It's pretty heavy this morning in from Umhlanga and heading north out of Durban. Also crash on the N3 inbound near Sherwood. So really big traffic coming in from Pinetown along the N3 corridor and backlogging the N2 south from Umgeni Road, wanting to get through 4 level and turn onto the N3. Very, very slow getting through that Spaghetti Junction this morning. Still some queues, Key Ridge, Cliffdale as well, on your way out to Pietermaritzburg. Cape Town, Somerset West looking just busy with volume of traffic through the central Somerset West area along the N2. And a fatal collision from much earlier this morning, N1 outbound at the Old Oak Road exit. That is largely on the side, but such is the volume, it's causing a delay from the top of Plattercliff Hill as you route out through Belleville on your way to Brackenfell. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Bafana are preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted by the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico from 11 June to 19 July 2026. Bafana will host 2 international friendlies against Panama on Friday, 27 March in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at 7 p.m. and Tuesday, 31 March in Cape Town at the DHL Stadium at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 80 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for children under 12. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
There is no room for mistakes for the Cottagers. They need victory to pull away from trouble.
Oh, yeah! He's done it again! Harry Wilson for Fulham. It's 2-1.
But the Clarets are ready to command possession, control the tempo, and spark moments of brilliance.
And Burnley are ahead. It's Bashir Humphries. Oh, what a turnaround we've seen here. Time out at all, Burnley are ahead.
This is the Premier League. Don't miss out on Fulham FC versus Burnley FC on Saturday, 21 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take 1 or 2 of your voice notes as well as some of your calls. A lot of you reacting and responding to the conversation we had with the Eskom chairperson, Mteto Nyati.
Good morning, Thulas. Alan Morepi and Ranchabele. Where were the likes of Mteto Nyati during load shedding? It looks like they were part of the problem. Only when we got when Mr. President appointed Mr. Ramokgopa, load shedding got better. So where were they? So we won't listen to them. Bring our Ramokgopa. Bring our Sifunu Mr. Ramokgopa. Kabong.
Good morning, hi Thulas. This is Kay. I'm not sure what your guest is talking about, but load shedding is still alive and kicking here in Limpopo, in Denelton, in our village. Load shedding is there every morning for an hour, every evening for an hour, every day without fail. And as business people, it is costing us a lot. So nothing has changed this side. Maybe they need to do more research. They're celebrating, saying that load shedding is no longer there. It is there.
One thing that Cyril excelled in was to deliver his promises to the private sector. They funded his campaigns. He handed them state resources. Transnet, a portion of it is privatizing. Ports, portion of it privatizing. Eskom, portion of it privatizing. Well done, Cyril. Kagisho from Kimberley.
Good morning, Julius. La. Your guest there, he's not going to last there at Eskom. They're going to get rid of him. He just praised Nasipi. He only gave praise to Nasipi. Great leadership of Nasipi. He didn't praise Johannesburg and others. Ha ha, yo.
Yo, guys. Let me go to, is it Tiny? Tiny in Glenridge. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Tulas. Hey, I'm really, I don't even know where to start. But
Sure.
now, we are really having a serious problem in terms of this load shedding. First and foremost, the meters were installed, I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken. We are the buyers of electricity. We are buying electricity. We've been buying electricity. Yes, electricity has gone high, has skyrocketed, but now load shedding does not stop at all. This is our problem. It does not stop each and every week. We are having this load shedding thing. So it is very sad to people that are buying. At the end of the day, you hear one speaks about load shedding that has faded. Load shedding is still alive here at Glenridge Extension 16, Phase 4. We are having that serious problem in terms of...
So are you saying you had these smart meters installed and yet load reduction continues, or you call it load shedding on your side?
Okay, fine. Yes, we have the meters, new meters were installed, but still we are having load shedding. We are buying electricity, and it's very high. But at the same time, we still are having a load shedding. So what can be done in terms of that?
Yeah, that's a different experience from what Tetonyati was talking about, saying that the whole point of smart meters is so that they can be able to differentiate between those who are paying and those who are not paying in areas where there are a lot of illegal connections. Is your area one of those that have high illegal connections?
No, we don't have illegal connection in my community. Sure. We don't have.
Yeah.
We're buying electricity. We've been buying electricity. Now it's worse with these new smart meters. We thought maybe things were going to be better.
Sure.
Things are becoming more worse and worse. We've decided even to shy away from our geysers. You know, we've gone back, to this bucket system.
All right,
it's so sad.
No, thank you for raising that. I imagine that the Eskom team would still be listening to hear feedback to the conversation, the lived reality versus what it looks like on a PowerPoint presentation. Yabinga Gwalanga, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thulasizwe, what I would have wanted to hear from the chairperson from Eskom is, why is it that they don't prosecute people who do illegal connection? Right now, I had a problem with one tenant of mine that they illegally connected electricity. And then I know that in Cape Town we get electricity from the municipality. But I went to report the incident to the municipality. Guess what? I was hit with a fine. I was told that I'm responsible to make sure that there's no illegal connection in my property. But I'm saying, I'm here to report this issue. The people who are causing this is 1 and 2. But guess what? Nothing was done. Instead, I was hit with a fine, and the people who are doing this, they're not being prosecuted.
Yeah.
I do not understand why. In another incident, what they did, they tapped from not from my electricity, but from the municipal grid.
Yeah.
And I reported it 3 times to Thulasizwe, but nothing has. In all those 3 times, I'm hit with a fine.
Yeah,
I do not understand.
I hear you, and I hear your frustration as well. Just this sense that there's no consequence management for people engaging in illegal connections, but rather we lament that situation. All right, I want to take a call from David, and David wants to raise something completely different. Good morning to you, David, in Pietermaritzburg.
Yes, Thomas. Yeah, I spoke to you, I think, 2 weeks back. I reported the issue of gatekeeping when it comes to employment of black teachers in former model schools.
Yes, I remember that call.
Yes, this is serious, David, because this thing is deliberate. It's similar to what is happening in the private sector. That is why the number of black people that are unemployed professionals is so high as compared to other racial groups. So I'm begging that you invite the Department of Education, because to me it seems like they are sleeping on the job, and they are also complicit when it comes to this matter. Because the policy of the government, because these are public schools, the policy of the government is the implementation of the employment equity, which is not happening in these former model schools, as they are highly dominated by Indians and white. And in some, you also find colors. Like people that they are only teaching isiZulu. And for me, it's like the former tricameral parliament where we are not represented. So please invite the Department of Education.
Yeah, David, thank you for the reminder. And we did make an undertaking, and I'm sorry that we didn't follow through on it. We will this time around follow through on that undertaking. A phenomenon that David says he has observed in former Model C schools, where he says there seems to be a deliberate exclusion of black teachers. You only find them, and according to David's observation, teaching isiZulu or languages like those, or subjects like those, but in the main, saying that in his experience and in the area, in areas where he's experienced it, there seems to be an exclusion of sorts that's at play. So we'll tease out that issue with the Department of Basic Education and see to what extent it's a phenomenon that they have observed as well. 8 a.m. and Musa on standby with the latest news.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
In our top stories, corruption allegations in the awarding of tenders and 3 suspected hijackers killed in Benoni. Good morning. Corruption allegations related to the awarding of contracts for water tankers in the city of Tshwane have resurfaced. Action SA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, says there is falsified information regarding the awarding of contracts to companies linked to Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise. He resigned as director of one company following the payments. DA mayoral candidate Celia Brink is also urging further investigation into the entire 777 million rand water project, which the Special Investigating Unit is also scrutinizing. Modise has denied any wrongdoing. Beaumont says the contracts were awarded under the DA administration.
The amount of spend on water tankers in the city is really a concern. So water tankers in and of themselves are necessary. But there's one further thing that I think needs to be addressed here, is that the same Celia's Brink that is ambulance chasing this particular issue is the same mayor under the government that awarded the contract to this particular company. And there's a level of dishonesty associated with the opposition in the city of Tshwane, which is regrettable. For example, the figure of 777 million is false. It is inflated by nearly 200 million rands worth of expenses that were actually incurred under Brink's government.
3 suspects have been killed in a shootout with police in Benoni, east of Johannesburg. Police say this follows a high-speed chase after a hijacking, attempted murder and kidnapping incident in Crystal Park. The victim was rescued unharmed. Officers found 2 firearms and some of the possessions belonging to the victim. Member of Gauteng's organised crime unit, Fani Nkosi, will return to testify before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria this morning. Yesterday, the Commission heard Nkosi had forwarded a list of bidders for its Tshwane Municipal Police Department tender to a man only referred to as Mr. Mampane. The man is alleged to have been the late taxi boss Mswazi Msibi's right-hand person. Msibi is believed to have been a member of what is referred to as the Big Five cartel. Sibahle Mota reports.
Evidence leader Advocate Matthew Sharkelson questioned Sergeant Nkosi about why he sent Mr. Mampane the list of bidders for the Tshwane Municipal Police Department tender. While Sergeant Nkosi was reluctant to respond, he finally told the Commission that Mr. Mampane had also applied for the tender. Nkosi further defended his actions, saying that the document was already in the public domain. Sergeant Nkosi's testimony before the Matlanga Commission has consistently demonstrated that he shares information that is considered to be confidential with those believed to be linked to the criminal cartel.
The Land Reform and Rural Development Minister Mzwanele Nyonso says an administrator will replace the Ngonyama Trust Board. He announced the dissolution of the board yesterday, saying it followed consultation with the Amazulu King, Mrs. Zulu Kazweletini, as the sole trustee, and the KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tamin Tuli. The trust oversees 2.8 million hectares of land across KwaZulu-Natal. Landela Nembata is from the Premier's office.
Premier Ntuli further reiterated the provincial government's readiness to work collaboratively with all relevant stakeholders in ensuring that the objectives of the trust are preserved and strengthened, particularly in relation to effective land management, infrastructure development, and the unlocking of economic opportunities within trust-held land. Premier Ntuli calls for calm and constructive engagement during this period of transition and reaffirms the importance of cooperative governance, addressing matters of land development and traditional leadership with the sensitive and respect they deserve.
And finally, thousands of Turkish demonstrators gathered outside Istanbul's City Hall last night. They marked the first anniversary of the arrest of the city's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, a rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Supporters waving opposition banners and Turkish flags gathered in their thousands, chanting messages of support for the detained mayor amid a large police presence. Mr. İmamoğlu, who had been widely viewed as a serious challenger to President Erdogan in the country's next presidential election, is currently on trial, facing numerous charges, including corruption. He denies them all. Mr. Erdogan's government has denied political interference, insisting that Turkey's courts operate independently.
Recapping the top story, corruption allegations related to the awarding of contracts for water tankers in the city of Tshwane have resurfaced. Action SA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, says there is falsified information regarding the awarding of contracts to companies linked to the Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Theft, accident, and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185.
Like analog watches, your car may be older, but it's got character. Now with Outsurance Essential car insurance, you could get savings too. 54-year-old Antoinette pays only 279 rand a month for her 2007 Daihatsu Terios, getting covered for full retail value if her car's stolen or hijacked. Get Outsurance Essential car insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headline. Live Golf's blockbuster South African debut. It draws 90,000 fans as well as global stars. It tees off today, and we bring you cricket with the Proteas assistant coach Ashwell Prince saying the young Proteas batters need to deliver against the Black Caps. All the details around 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg's N1 coming out of Randburg on your way to Four Ways, very heavy. You're going to pick up queues around to the Bay as Nordia, go all the way up to a breakdown before William Mandela. Also getting into that traffic on Malabongwe Drive, quite heavy coming in from North Riding side. Traffic lights are down on Rivonia Road at Summit, so coming into Sandton this morning on Rivonia, quite heavy. There's a backlog of traffic off the N1 onto the Mike 1, heading down to Sandton with that earlier crash before Marlborough Drive. And a truck losing a load of cement all over Marlborough Drive at Marlborough Gardens this morning. If you're trying to get from Sandton to the N3 or Limbro Park, that's a mission. If you're trying to get off the N3 north and turn onto Marlborough Drive to get into Sandton, that's equally a mission as well. N3 north still queuing heavily into the roadworks around the Heldney Interchange. Just north of Pietermaritzburg, lots of lights down this morning. Rosedale and Mountain Rise, Chotamatala and Manning and Willerton Road, Ortman Road, very slow, particularly around Northdale Junction, very slow getting out through there. And a crash driving into Durban on the N3. It's happened between Spaghetti Junction and Sherwood. Traffic coming in from Pinetown is backed up heavily, passing Pavilion and into 4 level. N2 south from Umgeni Road, heading down for connections onto the N3 inbound, very slow. Also some crash delays between Blue Lagoon and Mshlanga this morning, very heavy on the M4 after that collision earlier. Cape Town, a smash overnight last night was fatal, unfortunately. N1 outbound at Old Oak. That's causing a delay from Platter Cliff Hill as you line up through Belleville and out towards the Brackenfell area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8. Welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 107. In the next few minutes, we'll delve into the conversation around affordability as well as the market dynamics that will determine access, equity, in fact is the word, equity, as far as access to the new drug lenacapavir, which is being added to the country's arsenal in responding to the HIV and AIDS situation. It is an injectable that is said to be long-acting in the sense that you will need one injection every 6 months or so, and we're told it's going to be game-changing, used with the other interventions, right? Interventions that are part of prevention, but also pre-exposure prophylaxis, as well as post-exposure prophylaxis, as well as ARVs and everything else that's part of that toolbox. It's going to be game-changing and part of the drive to get us to a point where HIV becomes, a disease that's no longer a disease of concern among many populations. But the conversation then comes back to whether countries like South Africa that have a large population of people who are HIV positive will be allowed to have access to cheaper versions and generics of the drug, as well as participating in the value chains of lenacapavir. And that's a conversation that's been brought to the fore quite sharply by Doctors Without Borders. And in the next few minutes, I'll be talking to Alison Best from that organization to just outline and flesh out debates that are quite familiar for us in South Africa. We went through this very early on. I remember the whole conversations around AZT and the early stages and the early versions of ARV drugs also being subject to these conversations. Patents, as well as the ability to have access to cheaper generics. So that's coming up in the next few minutes. But before I get there, let me reflect some of your messages that are coming through. The issues around load shedding versus load reduction continue to dominate this morning following our conversation with Mteto Nyati, the Eskom chairperson. Dr. Mashuba Dieta, for example, says we still have blackouts in our communities and we don't understand why our other communities are not subjected to these blackouts. So that is what that person says. Someone else says, I reside in Garangua, which is part of the city of Tshwane, and we are experiencing load reduction on a weekly basis, which is load shedding targeting the poor people of our country. From 5 to 9 in the morning and from 5 to 10 in the evening. Load shedding is load reduction at the end of the day, electricity is being cut off. At the end of the day, electricity is being cut off, so the effect is the same. So why are we still experiencing load reduction? It also took place on Sunday, the 15th of March, 2026. And then someone else says, with the question of whether or not the unbundling is a precursor to units of Eskom being sold off to the highest bidder, quote unquote. This person says, Eskom and the ANC think we are stupid, and they put 3 laughing emojis and say it is being sold. So that is the perspective of that person regarding that. And then someone else says of Mteto Nyati, what a man, can't decide who the man of the decade is between Mteto Nyati and Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The question is, so if we have excess electricity, why don't we lower the price to manufacturing sector and mining industry? I'll tell you that's already happening in terms of the tariffs being set to meet those high user groups. There's something to that effect that is happening. And then lastly, let me reflect on, in fact, before I do that, I want to read the message from TG. TG says, the ANC seems to be unable to deal with corruption within its ranks, and also it seems that the EFF and Action SA are also corrupt if one looks at the allegations in the Metro and at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And I think the station, SAFM, needs to get to the bottom of this matter. And can you bring EFF and Action SA to answer regarding these allegations alongside the known corrupt ANC? And lastly, regarding your comments about voting, I think you were just expressing your views as a citizen of this country. 100% on that last point. That's exactly what I was doing. Thank you for that, TG. TG is absolutely right. There was evidence that was led at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry that really deserves to be brought under the spotlight. I'm not sure, maybe Ashraf Garda and the team on the National Pulse and the other programs throughout the day here on SAFM will lift that conversation up. Those messages that were being read that were suggesting that there was communication between Sergeant Ngosi, the current witness, and someone else who was acting as a go-between with the CFO in the city of Tshwane. And in that conversation, there's mention of the EFF and Action SA and lists that were being provided allegedly by the EFF and Action SA of companies to be appointed for various tenders. I saw that evidence, and to the extent that it's not covered fully, we will be sure to come back to that conversation tomorrow or the day after. Don't have time to get to the ones about people questioning my 1 cent bag, but we'll get to it at some point. I mean, someone here says, the shop name, Baba. I want to confirm if your story checks out. My story checks out. I've got a receipt, and the receipt has got price items for each prices for each item, including the one that I bought for 1 cent, being a very nice leather bag that is worth 800 rand. Anyway, let's keep the conversations going. The number to dial 086 000 2032 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes 0614 104 107. Let's get started in the third hour of the morning brief.
There is no room for mistakes for the Cottagers. They need victory to pull away from trouble.
Oh, yeah! He's done it again! Harry Wilson for Fulham. It's 2-1.
But the Clarets are ready to command possession, control the tempo, and spark moments of brilliance.
And Burnley are ahead. It's Bashir Humphries. Oh, what a turnaround we've seen here. In time added on, Burnley are ahead.
This is the Premier League. Don't miss out on Fulham FC versus Burnley FC on Saturday, 21 March at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You won't believe how much money Outsurance saves 40-year-old Rafiq on his car insurance.
I saved so much money. 899. That's not small change. It's more than 50% that I saved from my previous insurer.
That's an impressive saving on Rafiq's 2017 Nissan Navara 4x4. And after 3 claim-free years, he gets an out bonus. How much money could Outsurance save you? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insuring FSP. TCs and information online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
18 minutes after 8, a scientific breakthrough in HIV prevention is now colliding with an old and familiar battle. Who gets access and at what cost? Lenacapavir, a long-acting injectable drug that could transform HIV prevention with just 2 doses a year, is being hailed as a potential game changer, particularly in high-burden countries like ours. But as government negotiates with pharmaceutical giant Gilead Sciences, humanitarian groups are warning that restrictive licensing could limit access and entrench inequality. With nearly 8 million people living with HIV in this country, the stakes are not theoretical, they are immediate and profound. Let's speak to Alison Best, HIV/HCV Access Communications Advisor at Doctors Without Borders. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning. And I was saying that it's an all too familiar conversation, but outline it for us. What is the conversation about access, equity, as well as affordability for high-burden countries such as South Africa?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you very much for having me this morning. It is an old story. We saw it in the early 2000s. Essentially, we have a groundbreaking new tool, but it's currently licensed to a single pharmaceutical company. So that at the current time, that is the only company that is supplying the whole of the world. There are 6 generic manufacturers that have been granted a license to manufacture by this company, but they have not yet started manufacturing. They haven't actually received regulatory approval. So for the moment, there's a single source. The South African government is seeking to be an additional producer of lenacapavir, so it would potentially negotiate a voluntary license with Gilead. So what we are cautioning against is just using the same terms that have been used in those existing 6 generic companies, because those are very restrictive terms. They limit the manufacturer to a dependency on Gilead in terms of restricting geographic reach and also restricting how the supply and production can be done.
Yeah. Say a bit more about those restrictions. So 6 generic manufacturers, which you say have not started manufacturing yet, but you're saying that the conditions that are there are quite restricting. What would be the implications unless those are varied, as and when countries like South Africa are allowed to participate within that value chain?
So under the current voluntary licenses with the generics, Gilead basically does continue to control the supply through prioritizing its own pipeline. It dictates that the generics can only work with suppliers who have already forecasted they can meet Gilead's needs. So that means that those generics go to the back of the queue until the orders for the high-income countries have been met. So that's the first restriction. Then there are extreme geographic restrictions. So the licenses exclude many middle-income countries, and those countries constitute about 20% of new HIV infections. So the tool just isn't going to reach those countries. And it restricts those licenses and those markets for Gilead. And then there are also additional anti-diversion measures, which include requirements for product traceability and reporting, which makes the they're quite onerous for the downstream trading partners.
And please say a bit more about that last condition. You're saying anti-diversion measures as well as product traceability, and I'm sure you will be aware of some of the conversations that happen within the context of migration in this country. Is that what they are talking about? That you as a manufacturer, if South Africa becomes part of the manufacturing of the generics, there would be a burden to ensure that each and every, I suppose, dose of the product can be traced where it ends up, such that it doesn't violate the geographic limitations.
That's exactly it. So the pharmaceutical company is trying to make sure that there's no unselling in the areas that it doesn't want the product to be sold, that it's restricted the product. So it makes the licensee trace those products in great detail. And that can be really onerous for, especially for patients who are migrating, and it can interfere with patient confidentiality as well, if their names are needing to be recorded.
Yeah.
However, those terms are only potential terms, so the government has the option to negotiate these terms now as they're negotiating with Gilead. And the other option they have, if they can't reach terms, is to go the route of a compulsory license, which is where they bypass the patent, and the manufacturer is given the right to produce the medicine without the company's permission.
Yeah. So just from your perspective then, as a parting shot, Alison, you mentioned the compulsory license route versus what you and I have been discussing, the voluntary license route, which has these restrictions that we are talking about. In your view, which path, and I know it's you perhaps don't want to be offering advice to the South African government, but which paths around this issue would ensure equity in terms of access for countries such as South Africa?
Well, that's basically it. The South African government needs to make sure that the path it chooses is going to ensure access to people who need the tool. That's the bottom line.
All right. So you're saying that the option of a compulsory license would be one of those options?
It is an option that needs to be considered.
All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you for your time. Alison Best is from Doctors Without Borders, where she is HIV HCV Access Communications Advisor.
The Red Bulls and the Krijgkouwers are on a mission to finish the season as high as possible, with ambition driving every pass and every tackle. The question is simple: who wants it more? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the thrilling battle between RB Leipzig and TSG Hoffenheim this Friday, 20 March at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Get Spar Super Savings at every store, in every aisle, every day. Like 200-gram Nescafe Classic Coffee Jar or 230-gram pouch, excluding decaf, for 109.99. Save 39 Rand. Or 2.5 kg Spar White Sugar for 54.99. Save 9 Rand. Now that's super savings. Price is valid from 9 till 22 March, while stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable, and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign in to the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
All right, let me take some of your voice notes very quickly. Let me start with this one. It has to do with the situation in Iran.
Good morning, Sulas and the team. Good show as always. Sulas, I would like to agree with Babe Fagote. I think Donald Trump is finding himself in the spot of border. If he negotiates with Iran, that will constitute a loss for him. If he continue with this war, inflation will rise, then America will turn against him. So he does not know which way to go now. That's my take. PK here. Thank you.
PK, thank you for that. I did stories to that effect that say there's a certain situation where Iran is somehow being allowed to continue with its own shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, despite the bombing that occurred at some of its oil infrastructure. And of course, Iran also indicating that countries that are not hostile to it will still be allowed to have that passage through that narrow waterway. But the situation is volatile. It's one thing today and quite another the next day. And of course, the US president has said he wanted the other countries, including NATO countries, to send ships, warships, to that area. And many of them said thanks, but no thanks. And he lashed out at them and basically saying that they are being foolish, I think was the word that he used. Someone else wants to talk about Ingonyama Trust.
Thulas, it's very interesting that you touch on the Ngonyama Trust issue. It's Chris here in Camperdown. We really need to discuss this issue within the framework of land justice as well as special justice in the province, and how it has been giving or not giving Lama titles to landowners so that it is well distributed and it lives to the spirit of the Ngonyama Trust Act, where land is owned on behalf of the people and people are given right to voice their voices. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Chris. That's certainly one to pick up in the coming days. A focus is what Chris is calling for, a focus on Ingonyama Trust and how it fits in with conversations around land access and redistribution and restitution, the broader conversations about that. So let's see what we can engineer and what we can put together. But for now, let's go to N. Musa, who's got the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, 5 people have been killed in a head-on collision between a truck and a light motor vehicle on the R566 near Rama City, north of Pretoria. Authorities say the crash happened last night. Corruption allegations related to the awarding of contracts for water tankers in the city of Tshwane have resurfaced. Action SA's national chairperson Michael Beaumont says there's falsified information regarding the awarding of the contracts to companies linked to Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise. And US President Donald Trump has warned Iran not to launch further attacks on a key Qatari liquefied natural gas complex. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still quite a bit of traffic on the M1 running north up towards Four Ways this morning. A break-in down vehicle before the William Mandela exit, and that sort of back end of rush hour traffic. Still reasonably high volume, so from Randburg up to Four Ways quite heavy. The lost load that we reported all morning on Marlborough Drive out by Marlborough Gardens between Far East Bank and the N3 highway, causing quite a backlog of traffic in that area, not only going out through it towards the N3, towards Imbro Park, but also coming off the N3 highway, turning onto Marlborough Drive quite slow as well. There's been a collision scene on Pretoria Main. It's a truck that's crashed between Northway and Southway, that area through Kelvin. That's closed. Might be a bit of on-looking at that going on the Mike 1 South, coming off the N1 South from Allendale, all the way down through Woodmead, down to Marlborough Drive, is really quite heavily backed up today. And no lights on Rivonia and Summit Road, so the run from Rivonia into Santon being badly impacted. Also a crash coming in on Santon Drive and Alice, causing some delays into central Santon as well. A breakdown is the problem between Keyridge and Cliffdale. One of those very heavy mornings as you get out to Pietermaritzburg. Driving into Durban, a crash at Sherwood on the N3. That's still pushing a queue back through Pavilion and back towards Paradise Valley. And a crash on the M4, Ruth First Highway, southbound near Broadway, badly backing up traffic traffic still coming out of the Mhlanga area. Cape Town, fatal crash early hours this morning. Still with us, the N1 outbound at Old Oak Road, quite slow as you get up the top of sort of Plattekloof Hill and just move slowly through Belleville towards that scene. And there is some heavy traffic on the inbound side of the M1 still from around N1 City, Paro area. Going to sit in it all the way through to the elevated freeway and CBD area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you. You might have to explain live golf to me, the whole concept. What is it? Is it merely about golf, or is it lifestyle and far much more? And I saw some of the ticket prices some time ago. Not cheap. What is it? It's an experience, yeah?
Well, Thulas, in a nutshell, it's a professional Saudi-backed men's golf league. And it features a 54-hole sort of a shotgun start, right? And you've got individuals and you've got team competitions, and there's big money. That's all I can tell you. We've got a bit of traffic and a bit of money that's going to be hitting four ways in Johannesburg. Steyn City is where Live Golf will be teeing off today. Organizers, though, Thulas, have brought the tee times forward, and that's due to bad weather expected later. And this event, which is the first on African soil, features global stars like John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau alongside local favorites Louis Oosthuizen and Charles Schwartzel. So looking forward to seeing who gets that $30 million prize purse. And the tournament is also set to deliver a major boost to Joburg's economy. Cricket now, the Proteas assistant coach Ashwell Prince has challenged the team's young batters to step up in the third T20 against New Zealand in Auckland tomorrow morning. South Africa were bowled out for just 107 in the second match, exposing a lack of partnerships and consistency in the batting unit. More cricket back home. The Titans were spared further embarrassment after rain forced a no result against the Warriors at St. George's Park. Well, they bowled into trouble at 109 for 8. The Titans were rescued by persistent showers, enough to lift them to third on the log with one match remaining. The Warriors, meanwhile, slipped back as the Lions moved top of the standings following a DLS win over the Tuskers. Motorsport, finally, Lando Norris is getting the ultimate seal of fame, a wax figure at Madame Tussauds in London. The reigning Formula One world champion has been measured from head to toe, with the artist capturing every detail, meaning that there'll be two Lando Norrises in London, one racing and one standing perfectly still at the iconic Madame Tussauds. And that's your sport. We'll have John Gericke. He'll be standing up straight, bringing you all your sport around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Bafana are preparing for the 2026.
All right, in studio with us, Dowling Lechela. And Dowling, Zelma is excited to see you. So,
are you not excited?
No, but no. Why am I being? No, can you get on with it?
Okay.
Why am I being cornered here?
No. You just mentioned Zelma. I thought you would say the team is excited to have you in studio today.
Anyway, tell me about the Financial Sector Conduct Authority.
Yeah.
Sounding the alarm on JSE delistings. It's the story you and I have covered.
So, we've covered it before, and we've had the JSE out with so many new rules and regulations to try and deal with the delisting crisis. They wouldn't call it a crisis, but everyone else does. I mean, we've moved from about 800 listings in the mid-90s to just around 250 at the moment.
That much?
Yes. So the country's financial regulator sounding the alarm over a shrinking pool of listed companies and warning it could undermine the strength and role of capital markets in driving economic growth. the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, saying the firms that are now listed on the JSE, as I mentioned, they're moving from 850 to around 250, 280, raises concerns about the market's depth and appeal. Commissioner Unathi Kamlana pointed out that this decline has happened despite more trading platforms and increased competition, suggesting deeper structural issues at play. Studies by the Association for Savings and Investment in South Africa show SA has seen higher than average delistings and fewer new entrants compared to global peers, reflecting weak growth, governance challenges, and reduced investor appetite. Now, regulators warn this trend could concentrate activity among a few large firms, limiting opportunities for smaller players. Authorities are now exploring reforms to improve liquidity and make local markets more attractive for listings.
Yeah, I want to ask you to revisit reasons why companies list and delist. We've had that conversation.
Yes.
Let me not take you back there. In company news, tell me about PPC's turnaround strategy. How is it gaining traction?
Listen, that Awaken the Giant strategy really bearing fruit to us. The cement producer showing continued recovery with revenue rising 4% and earnings increasing 22%, and that being supported by improved operations for a second consecutive year. Margins strengthened to 19.4% from about 16%, reflecting the benefits of its turnaround strategy, while strong cash generation, particularly from Zimbabwe, has prompted the board to consider a dividend payout. Now, performance was driven largely by the Zim operations, where revenue rose 19% in rand terms and volumes surged more than 22% on firm demand. The unit also delivered record cash flows, enabling dividends over the period. In contrast, South Africa and Botswana revenue remained broadly flat, with modest local volume growth offset by weaker Botswana's performance. PPC's Awaken the Giant plan continues to underpin operational improvements and financial discipline. The group remains in a net cash position and is progressing with its RK3 plant investment, expected to further boost competitiveness and earnings over the medium term.
All right, let's wrap it up then. Which path are we likely to take?
Looking into my crystal ball, the one that I'm holding here, the imaginary one, the JSE, the JSE is likely to start in the red today as the war in the Gulf continues to fuel the risk-off mood. On the corporate side of things, earnings still in focus here at home, with numbers out from insurer Momentum and coal miner Exxaro. And then moving over to currency markets, the rand on the back foot this morning, edging so closely to that 17 rand mark to the dollar. It's at 16.99 to the greenback as we speak, 22.55 to the pound, and 19.49 to the euro. Oil prices remain elevated, with crude trading above $100 a barrel this hour, and that of course weighing on broader equities, with Asian markets sinking deeper into the red and US futures flat after yesterday's negative close.
Okay, siyabonga Sesuti, you came to studio and everything. I made a saving yesterday. I bought an item that's 800 rand for 1 cent.
Yeah.
So I was left with 799 cents.
Yes. And what are you going to do with that extra, that surplus?
Discretion. It's a discretionary
fund. I think it should be distributed among the team. Perhaps lunch.
What has the team done today? I was alone when I realized this savings. Anyway.
When you train for results, you don't quit halfway. Earn up to 7.35% interest with a Nedbank Just Invest account. Access your money within 24 hours. Keep your money agile. Get money fit with Nedbank. See money differently. Nedbank. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. We're licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Bafana Bafana are preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be hosted by the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico from 11 June to 19 July 2026. Bafana Bafana will host 2 international friendlies against Panama on Friday, 27 March in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium at 7 p.m. and Tuesday, 31 March in Cape Town at the DHL Stadium at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 80 Rand for adults and 50 Rand for children under 12. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana Bafana on X.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connect you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News airs weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and at SAFM Radio.
Yeah, indeed we are. And we always are streaming live on those platforms. Let's go to the story that we've focused on quite a number of times in a country still negotiating its relationship with memory, history, and identity. Even the resting places of its icons are sometimes not immune from contestation. The Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, says the vandalism of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe's gravesite is not just an act of desecration, but a deliberate attack on African dignity and political legacy. The incident, reported in Robert Sobukwe Town, formerly Graaff-Reinet, comes at a moment when Sobukwe's legacy has been actively reasserted in the public discourse, at least in that regard, with the renaming of that town. A criminal case has now been opened with calls for swift accountability. Let's speak to Apapowe, who is the Secretary General of the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC. Good morning and thank you for your time. Do you believe that this desecration and vandalism at the gravesite of Robert Sobukwe just so happens to happen at this point, or do you believe that it's linked to the ongoing debates and contestation around the renaming of the town?
Greeting to you, Sizwe, and the listeners of SAFM. We believe that it is linked to the renaming of Graaff-Reinet to Sobukwe Town. You would recall that on Saturday, the PAC, together with the community of Graaff-Reinet, we led a march to demonstrate that there's a support among communities in Graaff-Reinet for the renaming. And we were there on Saturday. Personally, I was also there as part of that march. We even went to the grave. The grave was still intact and all of that. But then on Tuesday night, we learned that there's something wrong that has happened there. Yesterday, we sent people to go and check, and indeed they verified that the grave has been disintegrated. So we believe that it is somehow linked to this because it happens immediately after that march. You would also know that a week before our march, there was also a march which was predominantly supported by some residents in Graaff-Reinet, which were predominantly white. And that march was also publicized. And we also learned when we were there that there were also some soup kitchens established there where people were asked to sign a petition and then given that soup. So we believe that there's a concerted program that is being waged against this renaming, and I can name a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Also,
what's behind what you're calling a concerted program? What are the social, political, and perhaps ideological phenomena that are at play that subtly underlie what we are seeing?
We as the PAC took an initiative to meet those that are opposed to the renaming, wanting to understand what are the reasons behind. That engagement is continuing, but we all that we can say at this stage is that there seems to be an effort to preserve the colonial history in that area, and then also to shape it in such a way that it's a preserve for a certain racial group, Gavrenet. That's what we have established. But as I said, we don't want to rush to all conclusions. We are engaging everybody so as to find an amicable solution.
So for those of us who are watching from afar, not directly involved in the debates around the renaming of Gavrenet to Robert Sobukwe Town, a couple of days ago, one of my guests on the other end of the argument was suggesting that the people who are opposed to the renaming far outnumber those who support it, saying that there are these petitions and then there's legal action that is taking place, and even the population dynamics in the area suggest that, the people that believe that the name Gavrenet is not divisive far outnumber those who would want to rename after Robert Sobukwe, whom the person that I was talking to, the guest, I can't remember the name, but is one of the attorneys involved in that process, was saying actually Robert Sobukwe was the divisive figure.
No, there's this misconception around consultation. Those that are opposed to this understand consultation to mean that is some sort of a referendum, or people are voting somehow to be against the name. Remember, transformation is a national imperative. It is not something that can be confined to a group of people to decide whether they are for or they are against transformation. It is constitutionally entrenched. So the consultation merely is to engage the people and understand their views, but it does not necessarily mean then that their views becomes the overriding all other important aspect of this process, which includes constitutional imperative that there must be transformation, that we must deal with apartheid legacy and colonialism, and we must recognize the contribution of all Africans in this country in terms of the liberation struggle. So you cannot just confine this to just a few group of people in a particular area who happens to come together and think that they can turn back transformation in this country. So for us, that is neither here nor there. The PAC itself, we've had our own petition, which is also supported by a lot of people. But for us, those are just process issues. But the fundamentals are that there must be change, and Robert Sobukwe must be recognized for the role that he plays. Robert Sobukwe was also born in Gavrenet. Robert Sobukwe contributed immensely in the liberation of this country. So it can't be that certain individuals believe that certain areas can be their preserve. The lawyer that you spoke of, who I also equally met with him, and I wanted to understand exactly what are their issues, and I could not find any. If they were to make and they could provide an empirical evidence that says if this name was going to be changed, it's going to affect negatively tourism, is going to affect the economy of the area, none whatsoever of such was made to us, except that they only want to preserve the colonial history of that area. Right. But as I said, we continue to engage everybody, but Robert Sobukwe Town will remain Robert Sobukwe Town. Those consultation does not necessarily change anything. It's just to make sure that there's unanimity and people work together, because we don't want Sobukwe to be perceived as a divisive figure. I don't know where does he base, the lawyer, if he said that, where does he base the fact that Sobukwe was a divisive figure? Sobukwe was one amongst many who espoused the notion that there's only one race, the human race, when all others were talking of multiracialism, which Sobukwe said that is apartheid multiplied. So we don't understand if people can say Sobukwe was divisive. The PAC was the first political party, a liberation movement in this country to embrace whites as its members. So how do you then say the party that was led by Sobukwe was a divisive figure?
All right. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. Apapowe is Secretary General of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, that is the PAC.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. A couple of breakdowns in the wrong places as far as Joburg is concerned. A breakdown on the M1 North at Winnie Mandela. That's been there all day, or all morning, I should say. So coming through from Randburg on your way to Four Ways, it's just really slow going. Also, a breakdown on the N3 North between London Road and Marlborough Drive. Coming up from Edenvale, the N3 on your way to Limbro Park stays busy. And there's just been a crash on the M1 South at Ravonia. So heading towards Four Ways from Buccleuch. That is busy. And the Mike one's been under pressure all morning from Buccleuch down as far as Marlborough Drive. It's still really heavy. Backlogs start around the Yatske Bridge territory in the Midrand area. Now, before you get there, there's also a broken down vehicle on the M1 South just past Olifants towards New Road. So M1, if you're coming out of Pretoria, it's still quite slow from Samran. Diepsloot, just south of Diepsloot, the 511, factor in some queues both ways through there. 55 leaving Laudium, factor in queues down towards Vrede Road. Durban to Pietermaritzburg stays heavy with a breakdown at Cliffdale. Queues back to Keir Ridge. You know those busy days that come along where you're stacking back for kilometres? It's one of those. If you're on your way to Pietermaritzburg, you might just hold on a bit, travel a bit later. The M19 through Reservoir Hills down towards the N2 highway. That's still very slow. And the M4 from Umhlanga heading to Durban, a crash by Broadway. Durban North exit earlier this morning. Still badly backing up traffic on the way to Durban. Cape Town, you can really see sort of middle of the month vibes there. It's nowhere near as busy as you might be expecting. Just the standout queue, really the N1, which stays under a bit of pressure coming through from N1 City through towards the elevated freeway and the CBD area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connects you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News airs weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Sorry I'm late, Sevi. Had to fetch my lucky putter. No worries. Let's go. We're teeing off in an hour. Great. We're taking your car.
Can't. It's already taken.
What do you mean taken? It was right here when I left a few minutes ago.
I sold it to WeBuy Cars and made a whole lot of green.
Birdie told me that's the best way to sell your car.
Not only the best way, it's the fair way. Kom ons vat die pad.
Don't be doof, be savvy. We buy cars geared for a fast sale, geared for you. Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, straight to the calls. Short and sharp if you don't mind. Let's fit in as many as possible. Let me go to Immaculate in Mahikeng. Good morning to Immaculate.
Good morning to Thulasizwe. I just wanted to challenge Mr. Nati to say in Mahikeng for the last 6 consecutive years, if not more, it is normal for residents of Mahikeng not to have electricity. Out of 7 days, we'll have electricity for 2 days for 4 hours. And perhaps maybe I should just pose a challenge to SAFM or SABC to say,
yes,
perhaps that is, don't take my word for it, but rather go to the ground.
Yeah.
So if residents don't vandalize private property or close the roads, electricity will never come back. But what is the funniest part is that once residents have taken to the streets, the electricity will come back within 30 minutes.
Sure.
And I'm one of the people that will always lodge that inquiry. But you'll only get to say we are attending to the matter once the electricity is back because people have taken to the streets. So for the last 8 years, we only have electricity for 2 to 4 hours. Sometimes we go for 5 days to 4 days without electricity. Perhaps that is something that your team and the reporters must just go to the ground and see that Mr. Nati is speaking from a desktop privileged position. That is not the reality of our lived experience on a daily basis in the Northwest Province.
Gotcha. Immaculate, thank you for sharing that. A lot of communities actually saying what you are saying. Sive in Gqeberha, good morning, also on the same theme. Sive?
Hi, Thulasizwe.
Yes.
How are you?
Very well. Please go ahead, short and sharp if you don't mind.
Thulasizwe, I heard Mr. Mteto very clear. That is the kind of leadership we need in the Republic, you know, where we are properly briefed on issues that affect us on day to day. But Thulasizwe, if Mr. Nyati's leadership can be translated into local government, because what I understood is that some of these challenges is because our electricity systems are not properly maintained at a local government level. That's why we are having these challenges. So I want to comment this word. Thank you very much. But they must now make sure that that quality leadership goes to the level of local government. Because that is where this team is failing at. Eskom is doing a lot better than Andre Darate. Thank you very much.
All right, Sive, thank you for that. That's Sive out in Gqeberha. Let me go to Alba in Sky City. Good morning to you, Alba. You want to go back to that issue, that point that many continue to grapple with around AFCON. Alba? Alba in Sky City? No, we don't seem to have Alba on the line for some reason. Not sure what is going on there. Let me take one or two of your voice notes, though, because there's quite a lot to wade through. Someone wants to talk about emojis. I'm curious. What about emojis?
Hi, Thulas. I don't think it's still okay for you to say people are putting the laughing emojis, since we know now that you can put the laughing emojis, but it will be a sign of shock. So don't. You'll never know if it's a laugh or a shock.
I hear you. And it's one of those that I only get it because I saw the testimony of Sergeant Nkosi, who was being asked about laughing emojis that he put in a message, and he said, no, it wasn't laughing. I was expressing shock. Trying to put a different interpretation for an obvious emoji that everyone will know what it means. And my goodness, in this age of emojis, have we come to focus on those quite a lot. Remember what was happening at the Judicial Conduct Tribunal and how those came to be a key factor in the evidence that was led there. Let me end it off with this one. Someone wants to talk about Lena Kapave.
Thulasizwe, good morning. It's Clinton here. Thulasizwe, I must say, this new name, Lena Kapave, it sounds like a new cologne. I like the name. Or let me rather put it this way. I like how the name sounds on the ear. Yes. Lena Kapave sounds like a new top of the range cologne.
Okay, I did not expect that. Thank you for that. That took a turn. But, you know, more importantly, hopefully we like what it does. Used as a combination, guys. Let's never move away from the combination battery of interventions strategy. Let's never emphasize one over the other. Prevention and all of the other measures continue to be relevant if we are to really defeat the scourge of HIV. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point with Kethi Mutlahlana up next here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, 5 people killed in a road collision in Pretoria and Santaco Western Cape ramps up efforts to curb taxi violence. Good morning. 5 people have been killed in a head-on collision between a truck and a light motor vehicle on the R566 near Rama City, north of Pretoria. Authorities say the crash happened last night. The Road Traffic Management Corporation spokesperson, Simon Zwane.
It is alleged that the truck was traveling on a westerly direction when it collided with a brick on the roadway, causing the driver to lose control and veer into the opposite travel lane where it crashed with it. Crash investigators are currently on the scene and an update will be issued later.
Corruption allegations related to the awarding of contracts for water tankers in the city of Tshwane have resurfaced. Action SA's national chairperson Michael Beaumont says there's falsified information regarding the awarding of contracts to companies linked to the Deputy Mayor Eugene Modise. He resigned as director of one company following the payments. DA mayoral candidate Silas Brink is also urging further investigation into the entire 777 million rand water project, which the Special Investigating Unit is also scrutinizing. Modise has denied any wrongdoing. Beaumont says the contracts were awarded under the DA administration.
The amount of spend on water tankers in the city is really a concern. So water tankers in and of themselves are necessary. But there's one further thing that I think needs to be addressed here, is that the same Silas Brink that is ambulance chasing this particular issue is the same mayor under the government that awarded the contract to this particular company. And there's a level of dishonesty associated with the opposition in the city of Tshwane, which is regrettable. For example, the figure of 777 million is false. It is inflated by nearly 200 million rands worth of expenses that were actually incurred under Brink's government.
2 teenagers have been killed in a shooting incident in Leonsdale and Elsie's River on the Cape Flats. Police say a 12-year-old girl and a 63-year-old woman were also wounded in the incident last night. The deceased are boys aged 16 and 19 years respectively. The incident is suspected to be gang-related. Police spokesperson FC Van Wyk.
The injured victims were taken to a medical facility for treatment. According to our reports, police members attended to a shooting incident and upon their arrival they found 2 males on the scene. Medical personnel were already busy to attend to them. Both were declared deceased on the scene due to injuries sustained. The community also alerted the members of the 12-year-old girl who sustained gunshot wounds to the hip and thigh and the 63-year-old woman who sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach.
The South African National Taxi Council, SANTACO, says it's ramping up efforts to curb the escalating violence in the taxi industry in the Western Cape. SANTACO's provincial chairperson, Mandla Hermanus, says they will soon dispatch peace ambassadors to monitor the situation on the ground and to mediate in disputes. He says they have 32 peace ambassadors from the 8 regional taxi associations. Hermanus says they are concerned about the recent spate of violence. 3 men were shot dead at a taxi rank in Delft on the Cape Flats last week. And finally, US President Donald Trump has warned Iran not to launch further attacks on a key Qatari liquefied natural gas complex. The strike followed an Israeli attack on a major Iranian gas field in the Gulf. The BBC's Peter Bowers has the details.
In his post, President Trump says Israel violently lashed out at the South Pars gas field out of anger. The United States, he insisted, knew nothing about it and that Qatar was not involved. Unfortunately, the president says Iran did not know this and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's liquefied natural gas facility. In capital letters, the president adds, no more attacks will be made by Israel relating to the Iranian gas field, unless Tehran decided to strike Qatar again.
Recapping the top story, 5 people have been killed in a head-on collision between a truck and a light motor vehicle on the R566 near Rama City, north of Pretoria. Authorities say the crash happened last night. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
The Red Bulls and the Kragkouwers are on a mission to finish the season as high as possible, with ambition driving every pass and every tackle. The question is simple: who wants it more? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Witness the thrilling battle between RB Leipzig and TSG Hoffenheim this Friday, 20 March at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Safety begins in our homes, our streets, and our communities. Government is working to ensure that every person in South Africa feels safe. Based on the President's commitment during the State of the Nation address, the South African National Defence Force is being deployed to support the South African Police Service in crime prevention operations across selected areas in Gauteng, Western Cape, Free State, Eastern Cape, and the Northwest. Their role is to support the South African Police Service to protect communities and strengthen safety where it matters most. Fighting crime needs all of us. If you see criminal activity, speak up. Report it to your nearest police station or call Crime Stop on 0800 10 111. Working together for a safer South Africa. A message from the Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS.
This Human Rights Month, we commemorate a significant milestone, the Bill of Rights at 30, making human dignity real. For 3 decades, South Africa's constitution has been a beacon of equality, freedom and justice for all. Yet dignity is not just written in our constitution, it must be lived, protected and upheld every single day. Join SAFM as we unpack the issues that matter, elevate voices driving change, and reflect on the progress we've made while confronting the work that still lies ahead. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Make Sunday a family day at the Indaba Hotel. Enjoy the famous Epsom Bubbly Brunch with fresh oysters, live entertainment, and bottomless mimosas by Robertson Winery from 305 Rand per person. Kids under 5 eat free. Kids ages 6 to 12 half the price. Every Sunday 10 to 12. Bookings are essential. Please visit www.indabahotel.co.za.
This February, love staying informed. As your day winds down and the evening begins, Primetime News moves to a new home. Weekdays at 6 p.m. The stories that matter, the context you trust, the news that connects you to South Africa and the world. Because loving what you watch also means trusting what you hear. Primetime News airs weeknights at 8 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Neighbor to neighbor, show me this one is for you. It's ngukutshele. If you didn't replace your SASSA Gold card before, your turn is coming. From around April, you can replace it with the Postbank Black Card. It's simple. Bring your ID and visit a Postbank replacement site near you. For general questions, call Postbank Customer Care on 0800 53 54 55. To find active replacement sites, dial *120 *355#. Postbank will never ask for your PIN. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point on SAFM. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. You are listening to KG Mwekezi on SAFM.
When I was 29, someone somewhere experienced the lapse of judgment, and I was appointed as the dean at ALA. I was entirely unprepared for this responsibility. 250 young people, 150 adults. I made a lot of mistakes, for sure, but the pains that stay with me are from days where I still believe I made the right decision. Early on in my time, in the second half of my very first year in that role, I sat in my office with a student who had made a big mistake. A student whom we were going to have to send home. He was in tears because he was going home to a place with virtually no opportunity and a deep, deep fear about his future. I made the decision on the evidence that I had, and I still believe it was the right decision. But watching him cry, my heart broke. Sometimes doing the right thing also requires doing a cruel thing, doing a mean thing, doing a hard thing. Every school leader knows this feeling, I think. Parents know this feeling too. Now imagine someone who leads a nation. We tend to lionize our leaders when they are in moments of moral clarity, when their ethics are perfectly aligned, when they are uncompromised.